Thank you, Dave. We move into the final third of the regular season, and you can tell by the weather. It's a matchup of two teams which still have first place aspirations. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers meeting the Calgary Stampeders, and you have to be a Hardy fan to be here tonight. The temperature 3 degrees. It is not golf weather, Glenn Sutter.
No.
Wind gusting up to 37K, and yes, we've already seen a little bit of the white stuff. Doug Barry's Bombers winning their first in 5 last Sunday, and with a win tonight could move into a share of first in the East, while on the other side, Tom Higgins' crew lost its first in 5 last Friday night, but a win tonight, they can grab a share of first in the West.
Both these teams trying to go and move into that first place position if they can. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers just 2 games out and still have a crack at it. Of course, the Calgary Stampeders knocking on the door. BC Lions still to play this weekend.
So Troy Westwood has it on the tee and will be kicking into the breeze, and a pooch kick short. It'll be scooped up, and it's kicked outside by Cates, and Cates crosses the 40 before he's pulled down by Kyrese Hebert. And so good field position for Henry Burris and the Calgary Stampeders to go to work after a slow start last week against the Edmonton Eskimos, and Henry Burris with his lowest totals of the season in the loss against the Eskimos.
Well, Henry Burris still on pace for 4,600 yards, which would be just behind his personal best. Joffrey Reynolds, number 2 in the CFL, right behind him in the running back position. There's the receivers. A lot of talk about their post touchdown dances and offensive line that hasn't changed from a week ago.
Jumbo set to start, and play action to Reynolds. Henry Burris going up top early. Burris looking deep, and Rambo unable to bring it down. Kelly Malvo in coverage, and Rambo had a shot at that early bomb from Henry Burris.
Well, Kenyon Rambo just about turned his body around in time. The ball was thrown to his outside shoulder. He was looking over his inside shoulder. Pretty good coverage down there by Kelly Malvo, who took away that inside throwing lane. But Henry Burris sending a message early to the secondary for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Might be going after you tonight.
Well, everybody anticipating the matchup of the 2 top running backs in the league, and the play action to Joffrey Reynolds seemed to freeze the defense. Now it's 2nd and 10. And the slots move back in. Nick Lewis and Jermaine Copeland. 5 receiver package. Burris over the middle, and there's Lewis with the catch. Bounces off, and Nick Lewis in a foot race inside the 15-yard line. Finally pulled down by Kyrese Hebert.
Nick Lewis going to take advantage of the hole in the middle of the defense, which is going to be right in here. Barron Simpson is going to be the guy dropping in there, and he has his head the back side. He has his head going to the right side of the formation, doesn't look. He's looking up receivers to the right. When he turns around, Lewis takes a hit from him, absorbs that one, takes off.
1st and 10, Calgary at the
Cover 2 for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, meaning 2 deep defenders, everyone else underneath, and he splits his own.
50-yard reception, the longest catch of the year for Nick Lewis. Here's Joffrey Reynolds testing the heart of the Bombers defense down to the 10-yard line.
Well, this is the matchup we were expecting in this game tonight. The #1 defense in the Canadian Football League against the run, giving up just 76 yards a game. There's the front 4 that do such a good job with Barron Simpson in the middle, stopping the run against Joffrey Reynolds tonight. Secondary that will have their hands full with a very talented receiving corps in Calgary. Robert Bean, his 2nd start on the corner for Stanford Samuels.
3 for Reynolds. Starts the night 41 yards back of Roberts in the rushing race. 2nd and 7. Burris looks into the end zone, and it went incomplete. Intended, I believe, for Copeland, but a couple of receivers were in the line of fire.
Kenyon Rambo was one of the 2 ran the wrong route, because you almost never see 2 receivers in the same position. Copeland is right outside here. There's Rambo. Take a look at the 2 as they come off. They end up in the same spot. Excuse me, that was Gates. There's Rambo 85. Now they're in the same, basically in the same area. That never happens. Offenses are designed to spread the field and make a defensive back cover the entire field. And that time they had 2 receivers in the same area.
So Sandro DeAngelis comes on
18-yard field goal attempt for DeAngelis.
to attempt the first points of the game. Having a terrific season, and this from 17 yards out. A chip shot for DeAngelis, so the 50-yard pass to Lewis sets up the opening points. A DeAngelis field goal in Calgary.
Yeah, I know, right out of the gate.
Your headset okay?
Yeah.
You got crowd?
Yeah, not much though.
Yeah, maybe there's
more
crowd,
for me, Cozy. They might not be saying anything.
Yeah. All right. Okay. That's. Yep. Okay. No problem. Yep.
Yep.
The CFL on TSN is brought to you by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet, and by General. The CFL on TSN is brought to you by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet, and by General Motors of Canada and all its divisions.
Bombers go to work on offense. They'll scrimmage at their 35-yard line. Coming off that win over Saskatchewan last week that halted the 4-game losing streak. A tough place for Winnipeg to win its second straight game. They've won just 2 of their last 15 visits. Here's Charles Roberts off the right side, and he's hauled down quickly. Scott Coe involved in the tackle, and John Grace back in the defense for Calgary. Let's set the Winnipeg offense for you.
Kevin Glenn with 2,280 yards passing so far this season, and behind him, Charles Roberts, CFL leading rusher, who thinks he's going after the belt against Joffrey Reynolds. It's a 2-man race, according to Charles Roberts. Stiegel 3 touchdowns away from becoming the all-time leader, and Garrett Jones starts at that tackle position for Jermise Jones, a healthy scratch here tonight.
Been watching the top 10 Milt Stiegel touchdowns in our pregame show, second and long, and Glenn over the middle, and here's J.B. Stoddard, who had his breakout game last Sunday in Winnipeg with 3 catches for 70 yards, and the University of Alberta product has a first down at midfield.
Doug Barry, the head coach for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, discussed yesterday how important it is for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers offensively to spread the football around. Yes, Milt Stiegel in the passing game is the go-to guy, no question about that, but it's very important to make sure that guys like Jamie Stoddard in this lineup are involved in the offense. He was, like you mentioned, Chris, last week.
19 for Stoddard, and a first down. Glenn back to the air, flag down, and that pass incomplete, intended for Stiegel.
Fires incomplete, flags down.
Calgary Stampeders on defense. Demetrius Maxey up front has 5 sacks so far in that front 3. Terrence Patrick involved in that one. There's John Grace back in the lineup. Heard Matt Dunnigan talk about Grace in the pregame show. He's back after missing a couple of games. Khalid Abdullah is out and injured.
Calgary 93.
And there is your secondary.
Penalty.
Same secondary.
Still first down.
That played a week ago against the Edmonton Eskimos.
Starting lineup brought to you by Tums. Tums tackles heartburn fast. It's an offside against Terrence Patrick. And so Winnipeg will see a 1st and 5. And yes, it is snowing at mid-September here at McMahon Stadium. And the Bombers moving into the teeth of a pretty brisk wind, and Charles Roberts stopped in the backfield. And there's Terrence Patrick, who replaces the injured Raheem Abdullah.
Number 93.
Mentioned Milt Stiegel.
Every time the Stampeders
3 touchdowns away from becoming the all-time leader in CFL history. There's the list and the 2 guys he's trying to pass. George Reed and Mike Pringle, both with 137 touchdowns. Milt Stiegel 135. And of course, the media all over Stiegel yesterday to try and get him to talk about chasing that record. He just wants to win games.
7 touchdowns in his last 7 against Calgary. Flag down, and that pass high over the head of Chris Brazel, the intended receiver.
You know, it looked like Stiegel, and on the opposite side of that formation, it may have been Brazel. Looked like they got pretty close to the line of scrimmage before the snap of the ball. I'm wondering if they were the guilty parties on that illegal procedure. Or offside.
Winnipeg 85. Penalties decline. 3rd down.
You called it. And so it will be 3rd down. And Westwood and the punt unit comes on for the Blue Bombers.
Marcus Howell, number 88, the deep man for Calgary.
And Milt doesn't agree with the call. Winnipeg native and former Blue Bomber Marcus Howell awaits. Low kick into the wind, and Howell will field it. And is dropped at the 27-yard line. 35-yard punt, 11 on the return.
Andy Pure Air Freshener, fragrance.
Chilly night at McMahon, bundled up on the sidelines is Jermaine Franklin.
That's right, guys. All week long, Jermaine Copeland and the Stamps receiving corps have had to field questions concerning their end zone celebrations, and not necessarily in the most positive light. When I addressed Copeland about it personally, he looked me right in the eye with a serious tone, and he said, having fun is what we do as a team, and we are going to continue to have fun all season long. And he wanted to make it clear that that doesn't necessarily mean that they've been distracted from their main goal, which is winning the Grey Cup at the end of the season.
Boy, it has been a hot-button topic in Calgary, and even Calgary Stampeder fans a little unhappy with some of the antics last week.
You know, it's a very fine line, and first of all, Tom Higgins and the Calgary Stampeders knew what they were getting with Jermaine Copeland, and it's one thing to, you know, be surprised by celebrations. Tom Higgins shouldn't be. Copeland's always been like that. Nick Lewis has gone right along with Copeland. However, it can cross the line, and I think a couple of times this year, the Stampeders have crossed that line.
2nd and 7 after the Reynolds run, and out of the backfield, there is Joffrey Reynolds in a first down up at the 48-yard line before he's tossed to the turf by the safety Sean Gallant and Robert Bean on the corner.
You know, I was never one to, you know, the celebrations and the dances and all those things. It wasn't my thing, so I'm not a big fan of them. I know there are people out there that are fans, young fans in particular, that may enjoy the entertainment, but I think it can go too far. A couple of times the Stampeders have. Last week in Edmonton, it went too far when they were on the track, and don't do it when you're behind.
First down, Reynolds on the ground again. Doug Brown involved in the tackle. That's his 200th career tackle, the big defensive tackle, number 97.
You know, the and we'll just wrap this point up, but this was last week when Calgary, after this touchdown, were still trailing in the football game, and they took the celebration out on the track. There's their relay and everything. And, you know, that's too much. I think if you sincerely celebrate with your teammates after a touchdown, or you put some little routine in it, some guys have a quick routine, that's no problem, but it gets too far when you start leaving the field to go and do things like that.
2nd and 6 out of the bunch formation. Pressure from Warner, and Burris gets outside contained, and he'll run for the first down and slide at the Calgary bench in Winnipeg territory. They'll mark him at the 48.
You know, Henry Burris is on track this year and on pace for an all-time personal best rushing the football from the quarterback position. He has done it more this year than he has any year in the CFL. He considers himself a drop-back pocket-type passer. He's on pace for 4,600 yards throwing the football and 26 TDs. But look at the bottom. 609 yards rushing would be a personal best for Henry Burris.
7th in the league in rushing, the number 1 rushing quarterback so far, and looking deep just out of the reach of Elijah Thurman, and step for step was Omar Evans.
And you know, he's a bit of an interesting story, Henry Burris, this year. I find it interesting that there's been so much criticism. A team that is battling for first place in the West Division. Henry Burris, great athletic, skilled quarterback that they can win with. They know that. And yet, he makes big plays. He makes a big play on Labor Day against Edmonton and is criticized for it. So I know there was high expectations coming in this year on this football team, and maybe they haven't lived up to those expectations, but they've got a pretty good one at quarterback.
2nd and 10. Short drop, Burris stands in and hooks up with Thurman, and it's a first down catch at the 34-yard line.
That's what Henry Burris is capable of. That throw is bang on a line with great coverage from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and there was only really one place where Henry Burris could put this football. He leads Elijah Thurman right to the hole, and you can see the great coverage by Omar Evans. He couldn't have played it any better, and yet Burris delivered the strike.
14 yards. Burris told us prior to last week's game he likes to ride the bike to get the adrenaline going early. He didn't ride the bike last week at Commonwealth Stadium before the game. Jermaine Copeland got on it earlier, and he didn't get a chance. He got off to a slow start, and Fury's tossed down as he's thrown to the turf by Anthony Malbrough, who wanted to promo the game as a matchup of the 2 best inside halfbacks in the league against the 2 best slots, and we'll be watching Malbrough up against Nick Lewis all night.
Well, we'll see if they're the 2 best halfbacks, because they'll have their hands full.
Offside. Winnipeg 44. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
So Tom Canada called for offside.
Anthony Malbrough, by the way, was very close to unnecessary roughness on the sideline with Henry Burris. I think he let up as he kind of threw Burris off the white stripe, but he's very close there.
So it's 1st and 5. And here is Reynolds, straight ahead, crashing down to the 20.
I'll show you one of the reasons, Chris, that Joffrey Reynolds is considered, if not the best, one of the best. We're seeing number 1 and 2 in the league tonight in Charles Robertson, Joffrey Reynolds. When he made that cut in the open field, he kept his shoulder pads going downhill. In other words, he kept them going north-south, not east-west. A lot of running backs will turn their shoulders when they make a break one way or another. Joffrey Reynolds has the great ability of keeping his shoulders towards the line of scrimmage as he makes his breaks.
First down, back to Reynolds, and he has tripped up Gavin Walls. Got him on the ankles and brought him down. It's a matchup of the number 1 rush offense, the Calgary Stampeders, against the number 1 rush defense. And again, you said 1 and 2 and maybe 1 and 1A as far as running backs in the league.
I'd agree. Different styles completely, but this is the defense that, you know, you want to play against. Look at this season. First in the league, the Calgary offense rushing the football. There's their yards per carry, and that defense for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, #1 in their category.
And of course, the leading tackler in the league, Baron Simpson.
And I love, Chris, what Joffrey Reynolds said about that front four, especially the two interior guys, when he talked about Doug Brown and Ron Warner in there. And then throwing in Baron Simpson as well. But he said, you know, when you look at Doug Brown at 6'7", 289, Ron Warner at 6'3", 275.
Calgary number 50. 5-yard penalty, still second down.
Joffrey Reynolds says, there are some men. There are some men playing in the interior. There are some grown men playing on the interior of that defensive line. And that's the challenge for Joffrey Reynolds.
That defense shut down Kenton Keith last week, 9 carries, 17 yards. G. McNeil called for procedure and a passing situation for Burris. Looking deep, and this one picked off. Robert Bean has his 3rd interception of the season. So a promising Stampeder drive snuffed, and Bean on the corner does the job again.
The CFL on TSN is brought to you by General Motors of Canada and all its divisions. And by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet.
Robert Bean, 5th start and his 3rd interception.
Boy, did he bait Henry Burris on that zone defense. He was the deep 3rd player, basically taking a 1/3 of the field deep in that zone and played it perfectly.
Pitch to Roberts. And again, this Calgary defense swarming to the football and Charles Roberts. They said they wanted to stop him before he got to the line of scrimmage. They've done it so far.
Let's go back to Robert Bean's interception just for a second. I'll show you. There he is in his deep zone. He's going to have 2. He's got 1 here, and he's got 1 on the outside. Watch how he baits him. Go ahead and run. I'm going to show his shoulder angled. He's going to turn his shoulders right there. Shoulders now are saying, I'm going to Copeland. I'm going to Copeland. What he does when the ball is thrown, he spins back out of that, does a blind turn, and is right there to find the football.
Charles Roberts, 3 carries, no yards, and it's 2nd and 10. And Kevin Glenn finds Milt Stiegel and a 1st down up at the 42-yard line.
Well, he's got a ways to go to get that 1st touchdown tonight, but a great conversation with Milt Stiegel yesterday about when he came into the league and catching that 1st touchdown pass from Kevin McDougall. You know, when you consider who is the best receiver in CFL history all time, Milt Stiegel thinks it's Alan Pitts. And interesting that if he could have a big night tonight, get the 3 touchdowns, he'd pass one of the guys that he tried to emulate when he came into the league.
Well, that 1st touchdown was 11 years ago this month in this stadium. And this play halted as there was movement on the line. And you're right, had a good chat with Milt yesterday, and the man he emulated, the man he looks up to, headed to the Hall of Fame, the great Alan Pitts.
And Alan Pitts definitely had a great influence. I'm not going to sit here and say we were best friends, but when I first got to the league, my way of thinking is I want to know who the best is because I want to be like the best. And I got a VCR tape of him, and I studied him, and I watched him, and I made sure every time after we played, I talked to him and asked him for advice, and he was very friendly with me and gave me a lot of advice. So it would be great. You know, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I don't want to break the record, but I'm not thinking about it. But I always say Alan Pitts is and was the greatest receiver to ever play in the CFL.
Could have a pretty good debate about who the greatest is once the stats are all complete for both Alan Pitts and Milt Stegall.
Well, and you know, I thought I have the utmost respect for Alan Pitts, who goes, as you mentioned, in the Hall of Fame this year. But I might go with Milt Stegall, and I'll tell you why. I thought Alan Pitts in his career had great quarterbacks that he benefited from. In Doug Flutie, Jeff Garcia, Dave Dickinson, Henry Burris. And that has not been the case for Milt Stegall. He's had some good ones. Kahari Jones, one of them in his prime. You know, he loves Kevin Glenn. He thinks he's a spitting image to Kahari Jones as far as his demeanor. But he had a bunch of bad ones as well and still did his thing.
2nd and 15 after the procedure call and the incompletion. And Glenn looks downfield looking for Milton. It's picked off. Kobe Reinhardt with the interception. So the two teams trade first quarter picks. And the Stamps get the football back at their own 35-yard line. Defensive player of August, Kobe Reinhardt, his 5th interception. And here's Joffrey Reynolds. Dragged down by Ron Warner at the 39-yard line. Let's take a look at Reinhardt's 5th pick of the year.
Boy, Kobe Reinhardt has become a real playmaker for the Calgary Stampeders in a hurry in his 2nd year, and get him cut underneath that throw. He mentioned that's his 5th interception of the season. Also, you can throw in 54 tackles, and he also has a sack this year for the Calgary Stampeders, so going a playmaker.
The interesting thing is corners don't usually make 54 tackles, so as Tom Higgins said, they're still testing him, but he's coming up with big defensive plays. 2nd and 5. Oh. That was picked off. Flag down as Malbrough heads to the end zone, and the former Stamp is in for the touchdown. And let's see if it will stand.
Burris is waving like it won't. And of course, he's trying to sell the officials.
Well, remember, Malbrough said this was the primetime matchup. And we'll find out what the call is.
Well, you know what? I saw Ron Ockamy jump at the line.
Illegal contact on the receiver. Winnipeg number 3. 10-yard penalty.
Wow.
First down.
The guy who intercepted the football, Anthony Malbrough, got his hands on the receiver before it was thrown. Now, you're allowed to jam a receiver. You're not allowed to go out of your way to go and contact him. And if he's not right in front of you and you turn your shoulders, you can't make contact at all. Nick Lewis, he didn't react at all. It looked like he had been jammed.
So first down for the Stampeders. Reynolds up to the 54. Had a nice chat with Malbrough yesterday, and he said Lewis, probably the most physical receiver he has to face. And he said, I can't just always be physical with him. Sometimes you give him different looks, speed one play, yep. And then the next down it'll be a physical matchup. Like a fastball and a curveball. Is that the way you had to play defense? Not always the same look?
Yeah, you can't give anyone a steady diet, or else they're going to end up finding a way to beat you. And Malbrough was a little over physical there, a little too long with his jam, and gets called, so that interception taken away.
2nd and 6, and the bunch formation to the right side. Big pressure, and Burris steps up, looking for Thurman, and Elijah Thurman can't hang on. Ball jarred loose by Omar Evans after Thurman got in behind. That's the final play of the opening quarter. And just a field goal to show for the opening 15 minutes.
Hey, hey. Looks a little. That's something that you don't want to hear. You never
You've never resembled that
you
remark, have
never
you?
want to hear that.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, no
It's
problem.
not bad. Oh, good, good, good. Well, we'll be there. God, I hate this shirt.
Looks like there's a bit of a delay.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Look at him. Look at him. That's kind of a. Oh, that's a duck umbrella, isn't that nice?
Oh, that is brutal. You're not allowed to have an umbrella in football, first of all. Second of all, it cannot be Donald Duck. Yeah. Time of possession. Oh.
First quarter stats are brought to you by Rona, proud league-wide sponsor of the CFL.
Well, it's been tough, 39 rushing yards for Joffrey Reynolds, and of course Henry Burris has some of those, but look at the other side in the rushing category. 0 rushing yards for Charles Roberts and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
So that means the rushing lead is now the two top rushers separated by, what, 4 yards? Charles Roberts can't be happy about the first 15 minutes.
No, and Charles Roberts, more than Joffrey Reynolds yesterday when he was asked about it, he wants the belt. He calls it like the championship rushing belt, and he wants that. So you know it'll be in Doug Barry's ear saying, I'm here if you need me.
And Reynolds doesn't think he really has a shot. He says that Roberts just gets the ball that much more.
Yeah, which is true.
78.
There's Albert Johnson awaiting the punt. Third down, Calgary. And Burke Dales, who had a huge game last Friday night, 7 punts, 52.1 yard average at Commonwealth Stadium. And a reception on a fake. Kelly Malvo also back. No yards flag, and Malvo taken down quickly. Walter Spencer involved in the tackle after the 35-yard punt, and now Charles Roberts will go out and try and change his running totals.
There's what you talked about, Chris. There's the 204 yards for Charles Roberts, and then you take a look now if Reynolds, who has a full yard more per carry
Calgary,
at 6.2.
31, 15-yard penalty, first down.
If Joffrey Reynolds had the same amount of carries as Charles Roberts, Reynolds would in fact be in first place in the CFL with 1,261 yards. That's why Joffrey Reynolds was saying yesterday he may not really have a shot because Charles Roberts is so much more important and used so much more in the Winnipeg offense than he is in the Calgary offense.
Actually, Henry Burris also contributed to the rushing total, so there's a difference of 15 right now in the rushing race. Reynolds with 26, and Chuck Roberts not on the board yet. And again, that Calgary defense stopped about stopping him in the backfield, because once he gets to the line of scrimmage, he's dangerous. There's the shovel pass dropped by Roberts. Roberts used more as a receiver than Reynolds, and when you calculate their contribution to the offense, Charles Roberts at 48% of Winnipeg's offensive plays he's involved in. Reynolds at about 38%.
Charles Roberts averaging 112 yards per game by himself from scrimmage. And that's including running, as you mentioned, and receiving the football.
2nd and 10. And Glenn over the middle, incomplete, intended for Jamie Stoddard. And the heat was on Kevin Glenn.
Good pass rush can make up for some problems in the secondary, and that time Jamie Stoddard was open over the middle. He had made a nice move to get there, but the rush was in the lap of Kevin Glenn. He really didn't have a chance. to get the football out of there. Brian Clark comes, and there's John Grace back in the lineup at the linebacking core, and that's what John Grace is known for. He's a playmaker. He's in the right place at the right time, and he rushes the throw.
Top defensive player in the CFL West the last 2 years, the top defensive player in the Canadian Football League last year. And Marcus Howell dropped the ball, picks it up, and finds the seam. Marcus Howell, the former Blue Bomber. Troy Westwood trying to cut him off, and Westwood gets his hands on him. Not before Howell takes it 55 yards down to the Winnipeg 20.
That's correct.
What do you miss most about your hometown?
Beach.
Like the mountains.
I enjoy the mountains on the beach.
What's in your CD player right now?
I don't have a CD player. I still got 8-track.
You're an 8-track player right now.
Pink Floyd, The Wall.
What's the first car you ever had?
71 Diamond. Brown on brown, looking hot.
Nice. If you had to pick somebody to play you in the movie of your life, who would it be and why?
Oh, Nick Nolte, because I think we look kind of alike.
I never noticed that. That's awesome. If you were playing football, what would you be doing?
Most likely, maybe a park ranger.
Please don't be careless with fire.
Oh, what's the one thing that you can't live without?
Ice cream.
I got some association marketing. You had two choices. You just say the first thing that comes to your mind. A-Team or Charlie's Angels?
A-Team.
Closed captioning of the CFL on TSN is brought to you by Castrol. It's more than just oil, it's liquid engineering.
Played 5 years in Winnipeg, 84 games, so that was a sweet return for Marcus Howell.
You know, that little fumble he had on the punt return, that may have set up some blocking angles for his teammates, because he hit that hole on the fly.
First down at the 20, and the give to Keats. And Wes Keats has a couple.
Sets up good field position for Henry Burris on the Marcus Howell return. When he fumbles the football, looked like the Bombers sort of hesitated for a second, maybe changed their angle slightly, and when they did, Howell took advantage of it, pretty good speed. But how about Troy Westwood? Saves a touchdown here by sticking with Howell and getting him out of bounds.
Well, it has been an inclement day here, but Tom Higgins, Calgary coach, says this field turf means it will be a fast track even in these conditions. 2nd and 7. Joffrey Reynolds left side. Slow up, and Kelly Malvo moved up. Barrett Simpson corralling Reynolds and making the tackle.
That's what you're taught as a defensive back in the run support role. And what it is when the running back is being held up by a defensive lineman or linebacker, in this case it'll be Barron Simpson, come in there and put a hat on him. He might pop the ball out, he might fumble the football, and watch Kelly Malvo. This is how you're going to stop Joffrey Reynolds. That's called gang tackling. 5 white jerseys all around. Kelly Malvo coming up and putting a hit on Reynolds as he's held up by Simpson.
So DeAngelis comes on to try another short field goal. This from 22 yards out. And DeAngelis is 2 for 2. And after the Howell punt return, Stampeders open up a 6-0 lead.
The CFL on TSN is brought to you by General Motors of Canada and all its divisions. And by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet.
Stamps lead 6-0, but a victory for the Winnipeg defense on that last series.
Anytime you get that sudden change and you hold the team to a field goal, that should be a momentum swing for the Bombers.
Albert Johnson would like to get his hands on the ball, but this is a short kick up for grabs. And Brian Clark knocked it out, and that's going to be Calgary football. And another former Blue Bomber comes up with a big play.
Hesitation there between the backfield, Albert Johnson III, who is the returner deep here, and he's looking to see who's going to take it. He's trying to call for the Bombers to take it, and there's Clark with the left hand. All you have to do is be the last team to touch it going out of bounds. He knocks it out with the left hand, and Mr. Special Teams for the Calgary Stampeders comes up with another big play.
Well, a veteran of 70 games as a Blue Bomber and the glue of that Calgary defense. And you're right, taking place on special teams like that pass completion he threw last week. Wonder if we'll see one of those gadget plays tonight. Fake to Reynolds, and now they dump it off to Reynolds. Barrett Simpson can't bring it down. Pushed out of bounds, but a first down. As Joffrey Reynolds out of the backfield.
Tom Higgins loves to run those fakes in the special teams, and the key on those fakes is always Brian Clark. Here it's going to be Wes Cates on the early one against the Montreal Whites. Look at Brian Clark now. He runs one. He's done that a couple of times on a fake punt. He gets the onside kick. Watch this one. Rolls to his left, throws back against the Edmonton Eskimos. And it's Brian Clark who makes all those calls. He calls them off for Tom Higgins. If it's not there, he is the key on all those fakes.
There's Reynolds inside the 20-yard line. Doug Brown with another tackle. 6 for Reynolds. And Doug Brown now into the top 10 in Winnipeg tackles all time.
Big challenge now, Chris, for the Winnipeg defense. There's Brown, 35 tackles this year, and the challenge is their sudden change again. The turnover in the special teams. Now they got to see if they can hold Calgary to a field goal.
You know, that graphic said he was second behind Tim Cheatwood among defensive linemen. He's first among interior defensive linemen by a wide margin. Here's Reynolds, though, finding a hole in that Winnipeg defense. And Kyrie Zabera to drag him down after he had a dozen.
Well, we talked so highly about the defensive line for Winnipeg, and justifiably so, but you have to give now credit to the offensive line and Tyler Robertson, who is graded out in that offensive line the highest Calgary Stampeder on the football team, game in, game out. He is the most consistent, and when they're playing against that great run defense, that's a nice hole for Joffrey Reynolds.
The Reynolds back in the ever-changing lead for the rushing, and now an inside handoff to Gilles Leslie, the fullback.
You know, this is one of those calls from Steve Barato, the offensive coordinator for Calgary, that, you know, it sounds good and it looks good on paper, but then you look down and you think, wait a minute, I didn't give the ball to Joffrey Reynolds there. And he's looking at that paper right now thinking, because Reynolds he was the fake and he was outside. Looked like if he got the football, he had lots of room to run it in.
Well, it's such a varied offense. 11 different offensive players have run the football this year for the Stampeders. That's just the second carry by Leslie, and now second and goal from the 4. High pack of receivers and pressure on Burris. Ron Warner can't get to him, and the throw is incomplete. Out of bounds, and once again, the Bombers' defense stands in the score zone.
Yeah, and Tom Higgins has to have concerns about that score zone offense. He has 3 receivers to the right side of the formation right there, and he's going to buy some time, Burris, by falling back. That blitz coming after him. Barron Simpson falls back. There they are. Receivers well covered. You could see a white jersey beside every one of those receivers across the board. The wide side, so Greg Marshall's defense responds once more. Now this is a good position to fake it if you have one in.
It would be an 11-yard field goal attempt. Flag down. Calgary was 12 of their last 18 inside the 20, scoring touchdowns coming into this game, but 0 for 3 so far tonight.
And it was that area too. We'll see what this penalty is, but that's the area that fakes become something that a coach is tempted to call.
There is no infraction on the play. Field goal is good.
So DeAngelis has kicked 3 threes, and it's 9-0 Stamps. Welcome back to McMahon Stadium. Let's rejoin Jermaine Franklin.
When Omar Evans was asked about the end zone celebrations, he said he didn't care, but he probably would care if Elijah Thurman scored a touchdown. You see, they said that they were best friends, our best friends, and that's a matchup to look at because it'll be extra intense because we all know what bragging rights means between best friends.
Watch for that matchup later. Right now, back to Milt Stiegel. And Stiegel with a first down catch up to the Winnipeg 51-yard line. Cornelius Anthony and John Grace, the linebackers, converging.
You know, Milt Stiegel, when he talked about Alan Pitts, I asked him, what in particular were you watching with Alan Pitts and watching those tapes? And he said the one thing that he watched with Pitts more than anything is the way he used motion. And receivers call it their waggle. Their waggle to the line of scrimmage, how they use motion to help them get open.
16 for Stiegel. Roberts trying to get outside and does. Charles Roberts with a first down and then dropped the ball. Winnipeg stays on it. As Sir Charles rips off 12 and gets into the plus column.
Well, that's the strength of Charles Roberts, which is his speed and quickness to the outside. Roberts right back there in the shotgun and bounces it right there on John Grace and then outruns that tackle angle. Brian Clark knocked the football out. That was live.
And R.J. Franklin saves it for Winnipeg. Brian Clark with 3 fumble recoveries. He's forced 4 fumbles now this season. But the Bombers' offense moving. Kevin Glenn dumping it off, and Rutschenball can't grab it off his shoe tops. Incomplete.
And Milt Stiegel was open a little bit deeper down the field for Glenn, who said to me yesterday he's got to be careful not to try and force the football to Milt Stiegel. But look at this waggle I'm talking about. See how he moves towards the line of scrimmage, then he's going back out. But his waggle takes him inside. That's probably something that he learned from the great Alan Pitts years and years ago, and he uses it very well. He was wide open, didn't see the football.
Don't know if it's the Pitts inspiration, but he's always played well against Calgary. In fact, he had a run of 10 straight 100-yard games against the Stampeders. 2nd and 10. And Kevin Glenn upended in the backfield.
Well, he was there again. Stiegel over the middle, and again, a good pass rush can really help a secondary out. because Kevin Glenn, had he had time to sit up and throw, he had Stiegel at the top. Stiegel's right there, but watch how the pocket is going to collapse on Kevin Glenn. Blitz coming from the outside. Glenn has to trip. He trips and falls. He has no chance to step up and throw a shot over the middle because Stiegel was one-on-one with John Grace, and Stiegel on the linebacker is a matchup that favors the Bombers.
Stampeders blitzing, including their dime back, Kranz Clemens, who will get credit for the sack in his first game as a Calgary Stampeder. Westwood drops the snap and just gets it away. Good kick, and here's Howell losing his footing as he stepped across the 10, a 43-yard adventure for Troy Westwood. Troy Westwood did well to get that kick away. It turns out to be a 43-yarder. And the Stampeders pinned deep at their own 12-yard line as Joffrey Reynolds goes to work. And Reynolds found a little seam and gets it out near the 20.
Mentioned many times with this matchup about with Calgary's running game against the defense of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the key is those two interior guys, because Doug Brown and Ron Warner have to continue to draw the double team. Comiskey right there, along with Taylor Robertson, and that's two guys on Doug Brown. If that happens, Simpson can flow to the ball.
2nd and 2, Reynolds straight ahead. And once again, Doug Brown involved in the tackle. And do they have enough for the first down? They're going to call in the yardsticks.
It's always the way it works is they work in tandem, and the entire defensive line for the Bombers, they've been so strong against the run because they're so strong up front. Baron Simpson averages 6 tackles a game, and that's high. Sees just enough for the first down. And that's a high total for Baron Simpson, who leads the league in tackles. The reason for that is because no offensive lineman can get past the 4 guys up front. So what you see then is you get 4 guys that are right along the line here. These 4 guys right here allow Baron Simpson behind them to flow to the football one way or the other. If they can take that block away, Simpson can get to the tackle.
Out of the bunch formation, pressure from Ron Warner, and Burris just gets it away to save the sack.
Gets it out of there. Incomplete.
So Ron Warner with some heat, and we're going to eavesdrop on Doug Brown, who's mic'd up the sounds of the game.
Here we go!
They're trying to trap me on the run play, huh?
Yeah, they but he stand on you like that. Take this rubber piece right here and put it right on his chin.
What about that?
I love that advice. Put it right under his chin.
Boy, it's tough in the trenches. Doug used to wearing the mic now, a radio star in Winnipeg. 2nd and 10, and a great lunging catch by Nick Lewis, and a first down for the Stampeders.
By the way, that was defensive line coach Richard Harris giving the advice to Doug Brown, and that's a nice catch for Nick Lewis. Nothing Doug Brown can do about that. He gets that push up the middle. Nick Lewis comes across the field in this reverse angle. You're going to get a look at Lewis coming right in the throwing lane of Burris, and that's some kind of catch. He has to expose his rib cage and go up and get it.
55 catches on the year, and he is over 800 yards now. First down at the Calgary 41. Charlton was blitzing. He was picked up, and that catch made by Nick Lewis working against Anthony Malbrough and a penalty marker down.
You know, Anthony Malbrough's got to get a ball call, and this when they talk about communication in the secondary, this is what they're talking about. Anthony Malbrough is basically running with Nick Lewis down the seam, and he's got his back to the football, his back to the quarterback.
Pass interference. Winnipeg number 3. Penalties decline. First down.
So basically, Malbrough, he can't see when the ball is coming. He's trying to be physical with Nick Lewis running down the field, and he needs to get a ball call from one of his teammates. There he is, all tied up, and Nick Lewis, a good call, and Lewis caught it anyway.
Second time Malbrough's been called. Turns out to be a 21-yard gain to the reverse. Wes Cates. And Wes Cates down inside the 25-yard line. So many different formations by this Calgary Stampeder offense.
Well, they get good blocks, and they use Joffrey Reynolds as the decoy. They need one block on the outside. They get it. That gets Wes Cates the corner. It all starts with a nice fake on the pitch to Joffrey Reynolds going one angle, or one direction. Here's Reynolds, he goes in this direction. There's the fake pitch. Underneath it comes to Wes Cates. And they need one block on the outside and get it.
25 yards for number 25. He's turned into a dangerous threat in his own right. Here's Reynolds, and Kyrie Zaber gets his hands on him quickly. Zaber in his second game at the will linebacker spot as the Bombers changed up to help stiffen their defense against the run.
You talked about, Chris, Wes Cates being another weapon for Calgary. Tom Higgins seems like a very confident coach to me when we talk about him, and he should be, because he has a talented football team. Look at his receiver. Copeland, Nick Lewis, Elijah Thurman, Kenyon Rambo. Then you got Joffrey Reynolds back there. I mean, they've got all the weapons.
They've given the 3-minute warning here, first half in Calgary. Well, catch Wendy's CFL on TSN tomorrow as the Edmonton Eskimos take on the Tiger Cats in Hamilton. Coverage begins 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. And the Eskimos energized after that emotional win last Friday night on that final drive, engineered by the Offensive Player of the Week, Ricky Ray.
What a drive that was for Ricky Ray, and Danny Machocha after that game. He just couldn't praise his quarterback enough, and justifiably so. Tom Higgins said yesterday, he said, you know, we faced one of the great quarterbacks, went right down the field on us.
Second and 10. Flag down. Burris looking deep for Copeland. What an adjustment, and he has the catch. But will it stand? A penalty marker down as the Stampeders celebrate.
And was Copeland the guy offside? Or was it against the Bombers?
It's offside Winnipeg. I thought it was offside
Winnipeg,
Calgary.
23. Penalties decline. Touchdown.
22 is Sean Gallant, the safety. He's offside. That won't matter. Copeland wasn't. I thought he was awful close to that line of scrimmage, but let's take another look for you quickly. Here you go. He's right at the top here. Let's take a look. In that neutral zone by about a half a step. Doesn't get back on the snap of the ball. There's Nick Lewis at the top, and here you go, right here is Copeland. He was very close to that line of scrimmage. See how he had to put the brakes on? Straight down on Kelly Malvo for the touchdown.
DeAngelis, the point after. And the Stampeders finally break through for their first touchdown and lead 16-0. Well, just under 3 minutes remaining, then we'll check in with the guys back in our studio.
Was it just me, or was Matt Dunnigan wearing a pink? What are they called when
Some guys can pull it off.
Yeah, when you put it a little thing
Puff.
in your
A
puff.
pink puff.
He's got a pink puff on
Puff tonight.
in his jacket. I mean,
But some guys can pull it off.
he can pull it off. He pulls off pink well, but I took a double take there when I saw the pink puff.
Also at halftime, Brian Williams will talk to the president of the Stampeders, Ted Heller, about the CFL expansion plans. And into the wind, a kickoff that comes down for Andre Thurman. And Thurman across the 42-yard line. Let's take another look at the Jermaine Copeland touchdown.
You know, it's interesting. No safety in the middle here, okay? You know what that means? That Kelly Malvo here has to take the inside position right there on Copeland because he has no safety help. So he's going to take away the inside position, and that ball is thrown to the outside shoulder. Copeland flips his hips around, flips his shoulders around in time, and finds the football. Copeland made it look easy. That's not easy to do for a receiver, because when you flip your hips around and your head around like that, you lose the ball for a minute, then you have to find it again.
This is the 8th game for Jermaine Copeland against Winnipeg, and the 7th touchdown for him against the Bombers. Winnipeg needs to get something going, and R.J. Franklin with the catch, dragged down from behind by Jermaine Chapman.
Well, the Bomber defense had bailed them out on a couple of those sudden changes and turnovers that happened against them. And they held Calgary early on to just field goal attempts. But that touchdown puts a sense of urgency back into this Winnipeg offense. They now have to move the ball. They have to get some points to respond.
Well, last Friday night, it was 16-0 for the home side, and then the Stampeders fought back against Edmonton to actually take the lead in that game. See how the Bombers respond tonight. Kevin Glenn rolling, and he lost the handle, gets his own. Well, they're ruling it an incomplete pass and not a fumble.
He was moving forward. His arm was going forward, and it just slipped out of his hand. Therefore, it's ruled incomplete. He can't pick it up and advance the football. And you can't throw it to yourself. So even if it didn't hit the ground, he couldn't catch that in the air and advance it either. So that's the incomplete pass. You know, Kevin Glenn has played okay in this game so far. When he's had time to throw, his numbers may not reflect that, but he's had some pressure on him. He's had some open receivers, and I've watched him look at those open receivers, but he has not had time to deliver the football.
Well, again, it's been an ever-changing offensive line in front of him.
Oh, is it ever?
Garrick Jones in tonight at left tackle, the 10th different offensive lineman deployed by the Bombers this season. 2nd and 10, wide open, over the middle, Stiegel with a great spin move. Brought down, but a first down at the Calgary 34-yard line.
And Stiegel may have had a lot more yards to run there had it not been the shoestring tackle from Wes Lysak. Stiegel right up here, and he's in that third receiver position, but a little change motion by he and Jamie Stoddard. Now he comes in, he's wide open, and how the Calgary Stampeders cannot get a man on Milt Stiegel. I'm not sure. If you're gonna double team or cover somebody, make sure you cover 85.
Well, he had just one catch in the first half last week, and then had 6 for 100 in the second half en route to the win against Saskatchewan. Here's Glenn, a quick hitter, and the seam pass incomplete for Stiegel that time.
Well, that is set up for, it has to be recognition for Kevin Glenn. The blitz comes from the outside. I believe it was Scott Coe coming off the edge. That's where Stiegel was lined up. So if Glenn recognizes it a little bit quicker, he can get the ball into Stiegel's hands with lots of room to run, and he was just a little late on the throw, and then the timing was off.
Well, you say Scott Coe, Cornelius Anthony come out, the dime package in on passing situations for the Stampeders, which includes Kranz Clements.
Blitz coming.
And Wes Lysak. 2nd and 10. Glenn gets it away deep, looking for Brazel. And incomplete. Chris Brazel couldn't pull it down with the coverage from Kobe Reinhardt.
Brazel had both hands on the football. Kevin Glenn knew it was man-to-man because Calgary had sent the blitz. When you send the blitz, you've got to play man-to-man coverage for the most part behind it. But again, another big play from Kobe Reinhardt because he doesn't quit, comes in with the left hand and punches the football out of the hands of Chris Brazel.
You know, almost 40% of Brazel's offense this year came in that one half against the Edmonton Eskimos when he caught 4 for 181.
That's a play that Chris Brazel has to come up with.
This is a 41-yard attempt by Westwood to get the Bombers on the board, and he hits another upright. And that's not the first time this season for Westwood doing that. He did it against the Argos. Seconds remaining in the first half here at McMahon Stadium. Calgary Stampeders, the best home team in the Canadian Football League so far this year. Record of 5-1. Joffrey Reynolds.
You know, Kevin Glenn told me yesterday that he has to be careful not to force the ball to Milt Stiegel, but here's a situation. Watch Stiegel right here. I want to show you that Brazel play again. Now, Brazel has a chance for a touchdown, so this is not a bad decision, but he's got Stiegel open once more over the middle. That's a post pattern where Stiegel, if the ball is thrown correctly, runs under it for a touchdown there. And in man-to-man, Kevin Glenn's got to go to Milt Stiegel.
2nd and 3.
Now, Brazel had his hands on the football. It's not a terrible decision because the ball was there.
Should have been a Bomber touchdown.
It should have been, but it was a wide open Milt Stiegel.
Burris out of the backfield. There's Nick Lewis. Flag down as Lewis is upended by the corner, Robert Bean. And let's sort out the flag. And Ron Warner telling us it's going against Calgary.
A long way to run for Barron Simpson.
Joffrey Reynolds upset. Was that a rub play that was actually a pick?
Well, and when you consider that Barron Simpson was chasing Nick Lewis, that would mean that Simpson was likely covering Joffrey Reynolds, which is a guy that he would normally cover, then got picked, and then ran after Nick Lewis.
There is no infraction on the play.
Oh, they're going to pick the flag
The
up.
pass was cut behind the line of scrimmage, so the block across the line of scrimmage was legal. We've got a completion by Calgary, and it will be first down Calgary.
Joffrey Reynolds won his argument. Well, I shouldn't say often, that never happens. That never happens when the player can go and talk to the official and talk him out of a call.
Have to check the bio to find out if he was on the debate team too.
I'm sure if he was good.
So a 13-yard pickup stands. And Burris has 65 seconds to add to the Stampeder lead. And they'll swing it out this side. And Reynolds somehow escapes. And Joffrey Reynolds with a great cutback into Winnipeg territory and down to the 45-yard line. Mike Charlton finally brings him down.
The key here is Reynolds has to beat Barron Simpson. This has been the matchup all the game. Here's Barron Simpson, there's Reynolds. Reynolds gonna come out of the backfield this way. Watch when he gets the football and Simpson tries to run him down. The mistake that Barron Simpson makes here is he doesn't get his head on the right side. He's gotta put his head on this side of the ball carrier, not in behind. Watch, he tries to tackle him with his arm only, and Joffrey Reynolds is gonna run through an arm tackle every time, even if it's Barron Simpson's arm. And this is just fundamental tackling. If Barron Simpson, one of the best tacklers in the game, gets his head on the upfield side of Joffrey Reynolds, he likely goes down. He got his head in behind him, and Reynolds runs through the arm tackle.
Mike Charlton shaken up on the play. We'll take a timeout here at McMahon.
Jermaine Copeland of the Calgary Stampeders. You're watching Friday Night Football on TSN, Canada's football leader.
Jermaine Copeland with the touchdown in the opening half here. And a reminder, this Sunday night, the NFL on TSN as the Washington Redskins taking on the Cowboys in Dallas. One of the great NFL rivalries. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Also available on TSN HD. A couple of teams looking for their first win after opening night losses.
I wonder if it'll be the same weather in Dallas. I don't think they're going to have snow in Dallas.
No. 20 more yards for Reynolds, 119 all-purpose in the game, and Burris has a pass through the hands of Jermaine Copeland, incomplete.
Copeland, it is incomplete.
Well, it's been a one-sided matchup so far of the top two running backs in the Canadian Football League.
Steve Barato for Calgary is using Joffrey Reynolds out of the backfield as a target in the passing game. And that's one way to get Reynolds outside and away from the Bomber defensive line. It's a fairly simple way to do it. You see the 56 yards receiving, and that's Reynolds able to bounce outside and catch that little swing pass.
3 catches in the game for Reynolds, who averaged just about 1 per game. Coming into this, big pressure on Burris, and they've got him tossed down as Gavin Walls has the sack, his second in as many weeks. Big sack late last week in the game against Saskatchewan.
And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, look what they do. They show everybody on the line of scrimmage and then go ahead and run it. Now I'm going to show you how many they send. Okay, hold it here. Look at that. Now they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 only. That's 5 on 5, but because of the confusion with everybody on the line of scrimmage, Henry Burris hangs on to the football. He thinks it's a blitz. It really wasn't a blitz, and the Bombers come up with a big sack from Gavin Walls.
6th sack for Walls, who was getting some heat a couple of weeks ago and was almost lifted from the Bombers defense. I was surprised to see that the sack by Walls last week was the first by the Winnipeg front four, who are terrific, but the first by their front four in 3 weeks.
Well, and no surprise that the 3 weeks they didn't have the sacks, they were losing games.
But Walls revitalized after a slow start, and well, another victim, and there are a lot in the club of the sophomore jinx, the Rookie of the Year last season, but now 6 quarterback sacks on the season.
Some problems with numbers. The Bombers are searching right now to get the right special teams players out, and they have to be careful, especially against Tom Higgins and the way he likes to run fakes. Now remember, the key here is Brian Clark. Brian Clark's the guy who would call a fake off if it wasn't right for Calgary, if they called one when they went in. Looks like they're getting things worked out right now as far as blocking assignments.
Hey, I wonder if something's up here. Fails to punt it away. And that one will skip out of bounds at the 19 with 26 seconds left, first half.
Yards for the punt.
26 seconds remaining. Bombers on offense from their own 19-yard line. Charles Roberts, his 5th carry of the night, and penalty markers flying.
That's what the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have to do in the second half to come back in this game. What you just saw there to Charles Roberts. Give him the football. When they do, they win football games. 6 wins, he averages 20.5 carries for 100 yards. 6 losses, the carries drop, as do the yardage, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers aren't as successful. 5 carries is not enough for Charles Roberts, especially in conditions like this.
The goal, still first down.
Well, in fairness, the first 3 times they gave him the football, he didn't get back to the line of scrimmage.
But it's a commitment, and you know that the Calgary defense, who, by the way, have a great front 7 of their own. I mean, we talked a lot about the Bombers' front 7, but that Calgary linebacking core can get to the ball, and they were going to get fired up. So it was going to be tough early going for Charles Roberts. Got to stick with him.
And the holding penalty brings the ball back to the just inside the 10.
Yeah, now Winnipeg really has to be careful. 21 seconds. They basically want to get out of the half here. It could have been worse for them.
Don't want to make any mistakes. Roberts again. And he's gang tackled after a couple. Demetrius Maxey celebrating.
But their defense has kept the Bombers in this game. They're on the road. They're in hostile territory. And 16-point lead is not insurmountable by any means. So it doesn't mean that Doug Barry and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have to completely change their game plan. They can stick with Roberts. They can come back and chip away. Their defense has kept them in this game.
Stampeders have earned their timeout, so that Doug Barry can't just run the clock out here in the opening half. Doug Barry was concerned about this game because his team had 5 days prep and a travel to Calgary against a team they hadn't played this year. And he was burning the midnight oil, and they've got plenty of work to do with 30 minutes of football left and a 16-point deficit.
Well, now the Calgary Stampeders burn their timeout, so they can't stop the clock this time. When they blow it in, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Kevin Glenn, will just let the time run down, and they will go in at halftime. But you're right, they lose a day and a half of preparation time in the short week, and that's really one work day. And for the Bombers, it's been that work day that they put the pads on and been physical, so that's a loss of a work day for them.
They let it tick down. Glenn puts a knee down, and that will do it for the opening 30 minutes of football, dominated by the Stampeders, who got 3 field goals from Sandro DeAngelis and a touchdown by Jermaine Copeland. Doug Barry's team down by 16 at the half.
Announced as being candidates to bring a team back to Ottawa. Can you name them? And Sound check. Hi, guys. I just want to get a sound check on it. Hear Ted Hellard there if I can. That's okay, don't worry.
Keep going. Say when. Keep going. 7, 6, 7, 8. More.
Donegan picked up on it nicely.
Oh, yeah. That was good, though. There was lots of good stuff in there.
Are we in your way for over here?
No, no. Nothing bothers me.
Today, Stampede Wrestling is alive and well in Calgary, operated by Bill Bell. Wrestlers from around the world are coming.
Well, David, one of the big things this morning, back to me this.
Tonight, we're lucky enough to showcase some of this great entertainment. Fans, please welcome your ring announcer for tonight's event.
How would you like to be one of those wrestlers out there?
No.
I can stand. Why don't I stand? Well, David, Ted Hellard, the Stampeders president and chief executive officer, is also the chief executive officer. Oh, I've got a green tie. I forgot.
Because your piece is in now.
Hi, who's this? John Hines? Hi, Heinze. Fine, thank you. I had a chance to talk with Hellard earlier this evening. Or should I say prior to the game? What would you say? I had a chance to talk with Ted Hellard prior to tonight's earlier this evening, all right? Earlier today. Yes, sir. Yeah. All right. Whatever you want to do. I don't mind.
And ladies and gentlemen, introducing the challenger for the North American Heavyweight Championship. He hails from right here in Calgary, Alberta. Weighing in at 215 pounds, the Stampede
Yeah, that's fine. Should I put my gloves on? No. They come back to me with the big.
What's going on? Just stay there until I tell you. Yeah, we're just. Can I what?
Thank you, David. Ted Hellard, the.
Can't see him, there's no lights on. Kill him back. How's that?
Of the three groups, although they get lots of money, Steelback to me has to be the long shot. They'd like to begin play next year. It will not happen. The earliest is 2008. Ted Hellard is smart. He realizes if they mess it up in Ottawa this time, if they get another dog and pony show in there, there will be no second chance. Yeah. Good. Oh, you know why? Because in the interview, too, I'm wearing the overcoat.
That was a muted was a muted celebration.
Yeah, it was, they toned it down.
Hey, they've got, it's okay. Murray, if they can move out of the line of the camera, everybody's right behind the camera. Thank you, Mur, thank you. I hear you loud and clear, David. Well, it's still snowing, but I've moved partially inside here, so it's a little bit better. Now, I'm going to throw back to you by simply saying, of the three groups, I would say Steelback, although they've got lots of money, is the long shot. They want to begin play next year. It's not going to happen. Ted Hellard is no dummy. He realizes if they get another dog and pony show in there, they mess it up again, there will be no second chance. They're going to take their time. John Hines? John Hines? You'll let me know out of this how much, like I would like to take 15 or 20 at the end, but I don't want to hang up Dave Randorf. So how long is the interview? Oh, that's great. That's perfect. So here's how I'm going to introduce it. I'm going to say Ted Hellard, the president and CEO of the Calgary Stampeders, is also chairman of two important committees in the Canadian Football League, the Expansion Committee and the Salary Management Committee. I spoke with Ted Hellard earlier tonight here at McMahon Stadium. It'll be McMahon Stadium, okay? That's the okay. Suits? Yeah. This is still called McMahon Stadium, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Voice to your Calgary.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, can I get that out of there, guys? Yeah, can you get the wrestling out of the monitor and get me up there, please? Thanks. Yeah.
It is. We're both checking.
All right, thank you, Dave. It is still snowing here, but I'm partially inside, so I'm able to take off my gloves. You talked about expansion. Ted Hellard, the president and CEO of the Calgary Stampeders, is chairman of two important Canadian Football League committees, the Expansion Committee and the Salary Management Committee. I had a chance to sit down and speak with Ted Hellard prior to tonight's game here at McMahon Stadium. Ted, this week, three groups announced as being candidates to bring a team back to Ottawa. Can you name them, and are they viable?
Well, it's the same three groups that has been reported in the media that had expression of interest before, and that's the Steelback group, the Palmer group, and the Golden Gate group.
Now, are these viable candidates? And I guess financial is the big question, but in all areas, are these pie-in-the-sky propositions?
No, they're definitely all viable. I mean, each one of them has, from what I've been able to produce so far, they have some strengths and weaknesses, but, we're able to sort of take a look at the strengths, and then the next phase of the process will allow us to go into more detail about areas we have a little bit of concern over.
Now, I know viewers across the country tonight are wondering, and I'm wondering, are you confident that we will see the Canadian Football League back in Ottawa, say, within 2 years?
Well, what I am confident of is that the process we're going through will be a very, very strict and process that we'll get all of the proper information. We just don't have enough information right now for me to commit 100% that one of these three groups will be able to be there in Ottawa. But at this point in time, I would suggest that from what we've seen, things look pretty good.
Yeah, but you can't give me a definite yes. Is it fair to say, though, you don't want another dog and pony show in Ottawa like the one that occurred with the Glebermans?
No, if we put a franchise back in there, we want it to be there in 2020.
Let me talk to you about salary cap. You're involved in the salary cap. I hear there are teams, namely Montreal and British Columbia, that are against the salary cap. You helped draft it with Commissioner Tom Wright. It's supposed to go into effect next year. Is there a chance the cap could be delayed?
No, the cap was went through a process, and the initial phase was a passing of a concept in Phoenix, and then after that there was the creation of a bylaw and constitutional document, and that was passed several weeks ago, which was announced in the media. And so, you know, basically the only way the salary cap could go the other way is if the governors were to vote it out, which would take a 6 out of 8 vote.
As we wrap it up, you know, when Ottawa was disbanded, the feeling was you didn't want bad publicity every week. Better to get the bad news over with, get rid of it, play with 8 teams. Has it worked out like you expected?
Well, there's no question that you know, we'd prefer to be a 9 or a 10-team league. There's no doubt about that. And having to jump from Ottawa into getting a season schedule where a lot of back-to-back games were probably not the way it would have been if we could have planned it from the beginning. But all things you know, taken into consideration, I think we've weathered it fairly well, and I think the CFL is having a good season.
It is having a good season. We'd like to see some closer games. But speaking of the weather, I got to tell the viewers, I had a scarf and gloves on until you came in here and shamed me.
Yeah, well, these scarf and gloves, I will have the thickest parka available will be on me as soon as I get out of here.
All right, enjoy the game, Ted. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I got to tell you, after that interview, he put on a red outfit. He looked a bit like the Michelin Man dressed in red with the gloves and the heavy coat. David, of the 3 groups, I would say Steelback, although they've got a lot of money, is the long shot. They would like to begin play next year in Ottawa. That is not going to happen. It'll be 2008 at the earliest. Ted Hellard is smart. He's no dummy. He realizes if they screw it up again this time, like they did with the Gleibermans and that dog and pony show last time, there will be no second chance. So Ted Hellard and the expansion committee will take their time. Dave, back to you in the studio.
Ball. 7's back on the field, baby. It's going down. Stampeders, baby. Let's go.
Friday Night Football, TSN. It's on.
It's windy. It's Friday Night Football. 7's back on the field, baby. It's going down. Stampeders, baby. Let's go.
Friday Night Football, TSN. It's on.
It's windy. It's Friday Night Football. 7's back on the field, baby. It's going down. Stampeders, baby. Let's go.
Friday Night Football, TSN. It's on.
Set for the second half on an inclement night at McMahon Stadium. This TSN proud to present this game in high definition, courtesy of Sony, and available in 5.1 digital Dolby surround sound. And the snow continues to fall here in mid-September in the foothills of the Rockies. And are you willing to declare that our golf weekend at Kananaskis is over?
Okay, I'll leave my golf clubs in the check-in spot at the hotel. They're not coming out on this trip.
Just as a hard sell, he is the only person to come to McMahon Stadium tonight without an overcoat. Oblivious to the weather forecast.
It can change in a heartbeat here in Calgary. It's my last-ditch effort. But it's conducive to the running game when you have conditions like this. And the Calgary Stampeders established theirs. The Bombers really did not establish their running game with Charles Roberts.
Big third quarter ahead for Winnipeg. They will have the wind and have to cut into this lead with the wind at their backs. DeAngelis ready to kick off. Remember, one kickoff already was recovered by the Stampeders. This one into the air and brought down by Albert Johnson and immediately met downfield by Cates. Kevin Glenn comes on to try and improve his stats in the second half.
We look at those stats, 86 yards in the first half for Kevin Glenn. You would think it's a weather game, although Henry Burris had success throwing the football, almost 200 yards, on pace for close to a 400-yard game in these kind of conditions.
You know, conditions have played a factor, a short week for Winnipeg, but Kevin Glenn's always struggled against Calgary. Never more than 215 passing yards in a start for Glenn against the Stampeders' 3-4 defense. Short drop here, and that ball picked off. Cornelius Anthony stepping in front of Milt Stiegel, and they finally whistle play down, and they'll mark him at the 41-yard line.
They'll call him down by contact. Kevin Glenn wanted to start the game out with a quick passing game and just try and get into some kind of rhythm, and he had everybody in his receiving corps run little curls at about 7 or 8 yards, and Cornelius Anthony read the mail. Cornelius Anthony is right there, and he just drops right into that throwing lane. He's got his eyes on the quarterback, and Kevin Glenn somehow did not see him.
Second interception of the game for the Stampeders. Reinhardt first half, and now Anthony, who moved outside to replace the injured Khalid Abdullah, as John Grace moved back inside. And here's Reynolds bouncing off Kyrese Bear. Robert Beaton trying to drag him down. Joffrey Reynolds ends up with 7 to the 34.
Joffrey Reynolds has one of the best stiff arms in the Canadian Football League, and he is winning the Derby right now between the two top running backs in the CFL with 63 yards. And another stiff arm, that time it was on Kyrese Bear. He's done it on Barron Simpson a couple of times tonight. I think Jock Climate showed you at halftime how he can just strong-arm a defender a good tackler away. And again, in that last drive, the Bombers went to throw. They didn't go to Charles Roberts early on.
Marking the ball at the 35, 2nd and 4. Burris, Cates. And Wes Cates has a first down at the 22.
It's one of the old school moves, the stiff arm. Remember back when players used to do the pose for pitchers, they would pose in that Heisman pose, trophy pose, and it was the stiff arm. Joffrey Reynolds is the best in the league at the stiff arm. The only other guy that I would think ranks there is probably making his comeback soon, and that would be Ricky Williams.
Right, Calgary might see him next week here when they host the Argos. There's Reynolds, and this time colored by Barron Simpson. That's a loose football. No, they rule the play dead as Barron Simpson brings down Reynolds, a gain of 4. Joffrey Reynolds just 9 carries last week. First time he's been held to single-digit carries this season. 15 carries so far tonight.
And then when you get up into that, the running backs love the last 5. You know, they like 20 to 25. That's the favorite number for the running backs when it comes to carries, because the defense is worn down by then, and that's when they pick up the big yards.
2nd and 6. Short drop, Burris. And that one skipped into the hands of Elijah Thurman, incomplete. And so DeAngelis will have to come on with the field goal unit.
One hopper out there to Elijah Thurman, but really Henry Burris didn't have a very big window. Nick Lewis has been on that one-on-one. Anthony Marlborough trying to be physical. That could have been called for illegal contact. He got away on that one. And Burris went to the outside on Thurman.
Yeah. So DeAngelis has made 3 short ones tonight.
Another sudden change success story for the Bomber defense, though.
26-yard attempt.
Yeah, he's down.
Stampeders run down the clock. And DeAngelis puts it through. So the interception leads to 3 more. 19-0 Calgary.
CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by Holiday Inn Hotels, the official business hotel of the CFL. With free high-speed internet in every room, the office is just a click away.
Third quarter's been the worst for the Bombers this year with just 24 points. They have to kickstart their offense as they take over at the 35-yard line. And Roberts up to the 40 has 5. John Grace involved as he returns to that Calgary defense after an absence of 4 games.
Yeah, and last year's outstanding defensive player is back in the lineup, and John Grace mentioned that off the top of the first quarter. There was his stats from last year and the reason he was the outstanding player. And Doug Barry's not running the ball a bunch to Charles Roberts. Maybe, and I'm speculating here, but he's looked at the resume of Brian Clark and John Grace and said, maybe we can't run the ball.
No, Scott Coe told me yesterday, I wouldn't want to play John Grace after 4 games out. There's Andre Thurman, his first catch of the night as a first down up at the Winnipeg 51.
That's a good point. You know, that's interesting because every athlete faces this every single week, and that is if you get hurt and miss a game, the guy behind you could be better. And that's why, who's the baseball guy that
Wally Pipp?
Wally Pipp, the Wally Pipp story. And John Grace does not want to become the CFL's Wally Pipp story. Khalid Abdullah was playing well in there.
Well, he tried to play hurt for a time, and it obviously impacted his performance. 1st and 10, Kevin Glenn looking downfield, has Eckert, and overthrows him by a stride. Adam Eckert, who has his first Winnipeg catch last Sunday in the win against Saskatchewan, and he had a step on the Calgary defense.
Adam Eckert had to make an adjustment here. Here he is down here. He had to make an adjustment on the fly. He's open here, but the ball is thrown a little bit further down the field and not to the sideline more. And if you've ever run on a treadmill, you know when you're running on a treadmill, if you turn your head to the side a little bit and you get all off track and wonky like you're gonna fly off the back of it, that's how difficult it can be to make that subtle little adjustment for a receiver.
You apparently have seen me on the treadmill. 2nd and 10, and Glenn in trouble, and down he is dropped at the 45-yard line, and that's Terrence Patrick hanging on for the sack.
Well, really the only choice here for Kevin Glenn is to basically get rid of the football and save the loss, because this was a fast break from the Calgary defensive line, and they get after it. Brian Clark is in there as well. He's the deep man here, and he's gonna go as well. He comes on the blitz and becomes actually a bit of a stunt. Clark is the guy who forces Kevin Glenn to duck down and get under there, and Terrence Patrick comes up with the sack.
Sack number 30 for Calgary on the year. Westwood, good kick. Marcus Howell. And that big return in the first half. Penalty markers fly as Howell is dropped at the 30-yard line. We're in the third quarter at McMahon in Calgary.
Okay, guys, on your mark, get set, go! It's a tight race. All right, it's pretty tight all the way. We don't have a clear leader yet. It looks like Avon's in front. Keep your books and he grabs his stats. Oh, no! I think. For every sack in tonight's game, Purolator donates the quarterback's weight in food to a local food bank. Purolator, where business is going. Couple for the Stampeders, so they have tied the Bombers for third in the sack chart.
Yeah, this is becoming a race, and it's the quarterback's weight. Henry Burris is 200 pounds, so it's 200 pounds every sack.
Reynolds gets outside, foot race time, and Reynolds all the way up across the 45-yard line.
Boy, does he make a nice move to break to the outside while he's accelerating on Kyrie Zebair. Kyrie Zebair is going to step into the hole, and right about there, he bounces to the outside, but you see how Reynolds once again keeps his shoulder pads square to the line of scrimmage as he's making that cut. Here he goes again. See that cut? He doesn't turn his shoulders completely to the sideline, and that allows him to keep the speed down the field.
And with that carry of 31 yards, he's over 100 on the night. His first time over 100 against Winnipeg in 5 starts, and adding a few more there off right tackle.
It was funny yesterday because, you know, Joffrey Reynolds was talking, you know, he was talking down sort of the race between Charles Roberts and he for the rushing title. Roberts, on the other hand, was saying he wanted the belt. He knows Joffrey Reynolds is a guy he's going to have to beat. Reynolds just said, you know what, it doesn't make that big a difference. He's going to probably take it because he gets the ball more. And Reynolds right now is getting a big lead, and there's nothing that Charles Roberts can do about it.
Reynolds was very low key yesterday. He even said, I'm kind of looking forward to introducing myself to Charles Roberts. He's certainly making the introduction loudly here. A pass intended for the newcomer, Ron Johnson, and Malbrough in coverage. Johnson in his first game with the Stampeders.
Well, let's take a look at the rushing lead right now, and it goes to Joffrey Reynolds, who's moved ahead of Charles Roberts. Roberts ahead going into this game, and I mentioned earlier, if Reynolds had all the touches that Charles Roberts had running the football, he'd have well over 1,200 yards and on his way to a 2,000-yard season. So because of all the weapons, Joffrey Reynolds doesn't see as much as Charles Roberts, but he's got the lead now.
Fifth 100-yard game for Joffrey Reynolds, but his first since late July. Third down, and Dale's in the punt. And a short kick. And Malvo will pick it up at the 32, and Brian Clark will toss him down with an exclamation mark, but there is no yards. Flag on the play.
Closed captioning of the CFL on TSN is brought to you by Castrol. It's more than just oil, it's liquid engineering.
In their 4 losses prior to the Saskatchewan victory, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers averaged 215 yards of offense per game. Well, they're below that tonight so far, 102 here midway in the third quarter. And Eckert wrapped up. John Grace is there to drop him right at the line of scrimmage. Well, the 4-time Emmy Award-winning reality series, The Amazing Race, is kicking off a brand new season. The 12 teams will travel over 60,000 kilometers in under 30 days. Sunday at 8:30, 9:30 in Alberta on CTV.
Automatic super lead, I guess, if you
yeah.
win that.
Now, you're the movie guy. That is one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, I enjoy that show. That's one of my favorites.
Second down, and a pass for Stoddard is incomplete with Jermaine Chapman in coverage, and it is a 2-and-out for the Bomber D offense when they really needed to put a drive together.
The Bombers are having problems picking up the stunts. Brian Clark went on a blitz that time, or a stunt for the Calgary Stampeders. The difference, of course, between a stunt and a blitz is a blitz, you outnumber the blockers, and that time Calgary went with blitz. A stunt is basically not outnumbering them, just trying to confuse them by twisting and changing positions, etc. But the Winnipeg offensive line is starting to struggle. They started to struggle midway through the second quarter, and it's continuing in this second half.
Westwood with the wind at his back. A line drive kick that's going to bounce all the way down inside the 5 and into the end zone, and Marcus Howell will pick it up, and would be wise to give up a point. He's going to kill some time first. And look out. No, he is going to step out. And a 70-yard punt by Westwood puts Winnipeg on the scoreboard. Henry Burris and the Stampeders with an 18-point lead, and Burris 10 for 20 on the evening for 209 yards. Last two starts against Winnipeg last year were over 300-yard games, and here's the option. Joffrey Reynolds down the sidelines. Malbrough blocked out of the way and then fought through the block to make the tackle. But another huge gain for Joffrey Reynolds.
The Calgary bench just went down to congratulate Henry Burris, who does two things real well in this play. Number one, he makes a great decision to get the football out of his hands and into the hands of Joffrey Reynolds. The fake is going to come right here underneath. Here comes the fake, and then here comes Reynolds and Henry Burris on the option. The fake to Wes Cates right underneath. Now they come option. Watch, he's open. Burris can pitch it or he can run. He decides to pitch it, and then he comes up, and he's going to make the block right there on Anthony Marlborough. And the entire bench for the Calgary Stampeders went and congratulated Burris for throwing it in there for his running back.
Gotta love when your quarterback's leading the blocking. This time he pulls it away from Reynolds and hits Nick Lewis, who is dropped by Charlton at the 21-yard line. Another Stampeder first down.
Is there a quarterback, Chris, in the league that can improvise better than Henry Burris? I mean, that time he pulled it out on his own. He took that one away from Reynolds. He saw something, he got it to Nick Lewis, and he can really make it up as on the fly.
Well, there's just so much in this offense. It's so multifaceted, and was one of the reasons Doug Barry was worried that his team was coming in here on a short week to face this offense for the first time. Pitch to Reynolds. The 17, Barron Simpson the tackle. Well, Doug Brown knew he'd have his hands full facing Henry Burris in the Calgary offense tonight.
His ability to make plays in uncanny situations, scrambling, he's almost a guy where he's more effective if he's out of the pocket running for his life and in difficult environments as opposed to just being in the pocket and having plenty of time and things like that. He's almost like a guy, the more challenging you make it for him, the more he responds to an adverse situation.
The Stampeders threaten again, 2nd and 6. And Burris steps up and looks deep. Incomplete intended for Thurman. Robert Bean was there defensively for the Bombers.
But a good decision. First of all, he did what Doug Brown just talked about. He improvised a little bit when the pocket collapsed around him, Henry Burris, and did buy some time to try and get the football out of there, and then makes a real good decision to throw it so far outside that either Elijah Thurman makes it a spectacular catch. Watch him step up, and there he buys some time. Now, Thurman either makes a spectacular catch here or it's incomplete and harmless to the Calgary Stampeders.
And the aforementioned Doug Brown, a split second away from a sack, is DeAngelis.
What's he doing?
Comes back in to attempt yet another.
How's that? Is that okay?
Short field goal attempt, this one from 25. And Sandro doesn't miss from that range. And it's a 21-point Calgary lead. Bombers take over at their 35 after the field goal. 3:20 remaining. Third quarter with the wind at the back, and Adam Eckert kicks it outside. He'll have a first down, forced out by Chapman at the Winnipeg bench. The Sisler High graduate with his second catch. And a reminder, you can vote for the Rogers Player of the Game during the fourth quarter using your Rogers phone. Send to Go CFL. Rogers bringing you the latest MP3 phones.
Calgary has Nick Lewis made some catches, Joffrey Reynolds, Brian Clark on defense. He's had a very strong night. Not real spectacular as far as sacks and things, but a strong night.
Here's Glenn rolling. And Thurman the catch.
Kevin Glenn throwing complete for Andre Thurman.
You know, this is a very important drive for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Obviously, they have to get something going. They haven't been down in the red zone in this game, if I can remember correctly. And the other thing it does for the Bombers right now is it takes the ball really out of Charles Roberts. He may see it a little bit in the passing game, and he still may get the odd carry. But the further that the Bombers get behind, the further away Charles Roberts becomes from the football.
At the Calgary 48, Glenn rolling to the left. Let's see if he pulls it down. First time tonight he will, and steps out. Just one carry for 8 yards in the win last week against Saskatchewan, as he carried for the first time since coming off the knee injury. And you wonder with the brace whether he's just not as comfortable running the football.
Yeah, probably not. And that time he had to, because Milt Stegall was double covered. And now that's why you're starting to figure out, watch Milt Stegall. The reason that Glenn has to run is there's Wes Lysak over the top. Now he's got him over the top, and then underneath you see Jared Ruffin. So that's double coverage on Milt Stegall, and that's the guy Glenn wanted to throw to, so he had to run.
4-yard gain, 2nd and 6. And Glenn, across the middle he has Jamie Stoddard with the catch, and it will be a first down at the 36.
Well, you know, Stoddard stuck with it. He stuck with his route. He saw his quarterback in trouble. The pocket was collapsing on Kevin Glenn, but he kept with it. He kept full speed on that crossing route and provided a target. Here he is inside, and he's going to just come across the middle here. And watch the end of the route as he continues to push it, coming across. You're going to lose him for a second. Then he comes across the formation there, finishes it off strong.
So 8 for Stoddard and a first down. And now Roberts. Maybe 2 for Charles Roberts to the 34-yard line. Latrell Bryant into the game and at defensive end, and he was involved in the tackle. Huge mismatch in terms of offensive yard production so far tonight.
Well, Joffrey Reynolds, a big part of Calgary's 419 yards. Winnipeg electing not to go with Charles Roberts early, and then the passing game struggled a little bit. Now they do have something going here in this drive, maybe their best so far of the game.
Now, does Milt have a catch in the second half? The first pass of the second half intended for him was picked off.
There you go.
There's a catch and a first down at the 15. Well, it was only a matter of time.
Well, even though he's double covered often, Kevin Glenn still can trust Milt Stegall. And this time he's not. They're going to go with a zone blitz. They drop Brian Clark, the Calgary Stampeders, and just in front of Clark, Stegall finds a little opening. That's one thing that Milt Stegall maybe people don't talk about enough, and that is how smart he is when he's running routes. Not just the man-to-man guy, but he uses his head. When he gets out there, he knows the holes to find.
Final play, third quarter, final play with the wind, and it'll be big if the Bombers can push it over their deepest surge of the game. And there's a completion to Brazel, so it has been a variety of receivers on this drive for Kevin Glenn. The Bombers threatening as we hit three-quarter time at McMahon Stadium.
I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come down for a while, buddy. I think we could still play. I think we should still play golf. I would, but he's not here. Here he is. If he leaves on that heavy coat, then he can't come on with me. What? I know. That was hilarious. I know. It was absolutely hilarious. I was like, what? Yeah. That's funny.
Hey, how many different receivers? Eckert? Third quarter stats are brought to you by Rona, proud league-wide sponsor of the CFL.
Well, 11 first downs for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but they've had a few on this series alone. 4 of those 11 for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on this series.
And this drive, the best drive of the game for Winnipeg, has involved 4 different receivers. That's something Kevin Glenn talked about yesterday, becoming a more evenly distributed offense.
Well, you saw Milt Stegall being double teamed on the one play, so that's when he has to start using the other guys. Now we're down in that area where Milt Stegall becomes the primary target, and remember, he's looking for that touchdown total to go up.
Ball on the 6-yard line. It's 2nd and 1. And Glenn surging ahead behind Abi Khan and Val St. Germain, looking for the first down.
Now, a couple of patterns that Stegall likes down here. One is the out. You know, when you talk about the great receivers in the league, G-Roy Simon does it a lot of different ways. He'll catch those short crossing routes and take it the distance. Stegall, down in this area of the field, he likes that quick out often. And what he'll do is set defenders up by moving to the inside in his waggle like he learned from Alan Pitts, and then breaking it out. Now, the Bombers on the 5-yard line can elect to go to Charles Roberts maybe once on first down here and then possibly back to 85.
It is 1st and goal from the 5. And it is Charles Roberts straight ahead. Roberts is in. Touchdown, Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's a good decision by Doug Barry. You know, you've got a great running back, one of the top ones in the league. Go with him first down. If he's stuffed at the line of scrimmage, you still have Milt Stegall, and you can go for him on 2nd down in the passing game. But a nice surge created by the offensive line up front. They get the good block. I mean, Demetrius Maxey is cut right off to the line of scrimmage.
5-yard touchdown run by Roberts, and his 6th major score of the season. Westwood adds the extra point, and it is now a 14-point Calgary lead.
Oh, fuck.
The CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by Castrol. It's more than just oil, it's liquid engineering.
Charles Roberts has the first Winnipeg major score of the night with just over a minute gone in the 4th quarter. Well, the snow has stopped, and it looks like the wind is diminishing a little bit here. Bombers working into it in the second half, or fourth quarter. Scott Coe into the up end, takes the kickoff. Well, that was a good-looking 9-play, 75-yard drive. 4:45 off the clock, and Roberts caps it.
With 5 first downs for Kevin Glenn. Used all his receivers. Stoddard over the middle. Used Milt Stiegel. And then he also went to Brazo on a quick hitch. Here's the hitch, got it down close, and then ran the ball to cap the drive off.
And Adam Eckert early in the drive to catch, so 4 different receivers. And now the Winnipeg defense has to keep this momentum going.
May have a reason to believe now.
Burris and the Stampeders start at their own 48-yard line. And Burris has an open man, and Elijah Thurman fingertip grab and got a foot down for a nice-looking catch.
Well, you know, he gets his hands on the ball, then it looked like to me he took a peek down to make sure he could keep that foot in bounds. Ball thrown right up and outside to Elijah Thurman. Now he takes a little peek to make sure that he's still inside that white stripe, but he kept his right foot in bounds.
He'd be a bigger part of the Calgary offense this year. Just 4 games has he had over 50 yards receiving. The second catch tonight. And now that option. And Rambo takes the toss, and Mike Charlton tracks him down. Well, that's going to be close to another Calgary first down.
Kenyon Rambo comes from the opposite side of the formation, and this is a nice formation and a new look for the Calgary Stampeders. Steve Barato had time to prepare this week. He's got a long week, and he puts a little wrinkle in it. The fake to Reynolds. Usually they go with either Wes Cates or Reynolds on this option. This time they bring Kenyon Rambo all the way from the wideout position and wrap him all the way around to become the pitchman. He is not a guy that a linebacker would count. That's just another great look from Steve Barato's offense, and boy, are there a lot of looks.
And he's not going to challenge Joffrey Reynolds or Charles Roberts for the rushing lead, but Rambo goes over 100 yards rushing for the season tonight. He's one of those many guys that gets their hands on the football.
Well, that's just it. And I mentioned earlier how confident Tom Higgins is, but look at their weapons. I mean, there's one of them, Rambo. Elijah Thurman, who caught a nice pass just prior to that run by Rambo. And then Copeland and Lewis.
And here's a great situation for Calgary, 2nd and inches. Well, they just go straight ahead to Joffrey Reynolds. He'll get the first down, but with all the plays at Steve Barato's disposal, you wondered if he'd pull something else out of the playbook on 2nd and inches.
Yeah, that's one thing that Tom Higgins said to us yesterday at the press conference, that whatever team the Calgary Stampeders face, they're going to see a lot of different formations. Now, it's one thing to draw them all up, but you have to have the players that are willing to spend the time in the meeting rooms, spend the time watching the game tapes to make sure there's another one, the bunch formation.
So you're saying they're not just practicing their touchdown celebrations?
No, they're not. They can't be.
There's the fake toss, and back the other way, the reverse to Cates. And Cates cuts it back and still going inside the 15-yard line.
Just great execution and misdirection from the Calgary Stampeders. They've run this bunch formation, and they've gone a bunch of times that way. So here's the bunch formation here, and when they've run this, they've gone to Joffrey Reynolds this way. This time, they run the bunch formation, fake it to Joffrey Reynolds, go underneath to Wes Cates going the opposite direction. So you keep mixing things up in the formations that you have, and the defense starts to guess.
What a response from the Calgary offense so far. Fake to Cates, and look out, that's a live football. Or is it? They're going to rule incomplete. That looked like a lateral.
Well, it sure did. I mean, it looked like a pitch the whole way. Now, if it's forward, anything overhand, underhand, doesn't matter, is considered a pass, a forward pass. There's the fake. Basically, Burr said, that looks like a pitch backwards to me. Either way, Joffrey Reynolds falls on it, so Calgary retains the football, although they may have lost a few yards. Had it been ruled a pitch.
And it is going to be 2nd and 10. A challenge from Doug Barry. As He thinks it was a lateral and that might result in a few yards lost for the Stampeders.
Let's take a look. This is a good angle for you. Burris comes right down the line. He's just a yard off that line, or maybe he bubbles back a little bit, and then it did bounce forward. That, you know what? It's very close.
Winnipeg has withdrawn their challenge.
Yeah.
It'll be second down.
That last angle showed it nicely, and that little half step by Henry Burris to get a little bit deeper. He starts out on the line where the ball is going to bounce, but then that little step there takes him off that line. So, boy, that was a keen eye by the officials.
I'm not sure a worthy challenge by Winnipeg anyway, because at worst it would have resulted in a couple of yards loss.
Well,
instead it's 2nd and 10.
It's a game of inches, they say.
And Burris, Cates. And Cates to the one, dropped the ball. It ends up in the hands of Elijah Thurman. They're ruling he's down at the 1.
Well, and now if you're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, you want to challenge this as a fumble because Elijah Thurman recovered it in the end zone. Although if the whistle blew, then it wouldn't. Elijah Thurman wouldn't get the ball. It would be ruled down. And let's take a look. Kyrie Bear comes up. He's part of this. They're ruling him down on the 1, that the ball never crossed the plane.
First and goal, Stampeders at the 1.
And Cates really has
that's a good call.
Become a dangerous part of this offense, and now 1st and goal. Henry Burris plowing ahead and tossed back.
That could be a flag right there.
Not seeing any indication that he broke the plane.
Tom Canada had to be careful, although Calgary right down there, and there was no hands in the air from any of the officials. Let's go back to that play to Wes Cates down the goal line. Kyrie Bear, one of the Winnipeg tacklers. It's another angle for you. Omar Evans from the outside. The ball was fumbled.
Okay.
2nd and goal now, and Burris will try it again, and this time he does score behind John Comiskey, Taylor Robertson, and that all-Canadian Calgary offensive line.
What a response for the Calgary offense to come in right after Kevin Glenn puts together a touchdown drive with 5 first downs. The Calgary Stampeders march right back and answer the bell. It starts out with a great throw and catch from Burris to Elijah Thurman and ends up with that one-yard plunge from Henry Burris.
Henry Burris with his 4th touchdown rushing this season. He has thrown his 99th career touchdown pass tonight. And DeAngelis adds the extra point. But there is a penalty marker down.
You know, and in that drive, that answer, and Burris just wanted to say hi to everybody. But I want to give a lot of credit in that drive and that answer from Calgary to Steve Barato. You know, he formation Winnipeg there. He formation them.
Calgary 93, 5-yard penalty. Will repeat the convert from the 10-yard line.
And Barato, they're going to do the convert over here, but Barato really, that's good combination play calling. You know, where you throw a bunch of different formations and then a lot of misdirection. So a lot of credit has to go to Barato on that drive.
So many weapons at his disposal. Patrick, the guilty party, moves it back 5, and a little tougher test for DeAngelis. Not really. And how about these fans?
They golf.
Party guys, yeah, they're ready to go golfing. NASCAR fans, tune in Sunday for the Sylvania 300 from the New Hampshire International Speedway. Coverage begins at 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. It's available in TSN HD. 7-play drive, 62 yards, 5 minutes off the clock as whoop, the ball fell off the tee and we had a full start. And they'll regroup here.
And here everybody is on their way down the field and it's like, hang on. Reload.
So take two. As the Stampeders have reestablished a 21-point lead, a line drive kickoff. And Thurman will high step it across the 40. And he'll be stopped at the 42. And all the talk about Copeland and Lewis and the touchdown celebrations, we know where the offensive line stands on the issue here in Calgary. Watch this.
Henry Burris wants to go to Taylor Robertson. Here, Spike it, dance. Let's dance. No, I don't want anything to do with that. Let's go. Okay, Comiskey. Here, hey, let's go. You go. No.
Jay McNeil, no.
McNeil. Anybody. Does anybody want to spike or dance the ball with? Can you, please? Look at you. Who gets it? Cedric, I'll play. Cedric D'Angelo says, give it to me. I'll play with it. That's hilarious. I guess the O-line aren't the dancers in the group.
No. They won't be part of the 5-man bobsled. Kevin Glenn goes to work looking for Thurman, and Andre Thurman tossed down, and that'll draw 3 flags as J.R. Ruffin tackled Thurman before the ball arrived.
And that's what happens when a quarterback on a deep ball like that puts air under it. He puts air under it because it does a couple of things. If you put air under it like that, first of all, it gives your receiver a chance to get under the football and run under it. Second of all, it can cause
Calgary number 28. First down, Winnipeg.
It can cause a defensive back to panic when the ball arrives, and that's what J.R. Ruffin does. He panics, he jumps the gun, and he tackles Thurman with the ball in the air.
Ruffin in tonight as a starter in place of Tony Tiller, the man who was lit up for the 4-touchdown game by Milt Stiegel against BC last year. 21-yard pickup. And Brazel a catch. Forced out at the 40. Close to 8 for Chris Brazel.
9-yard gain to Winnipeg.
And you wonder if Tom Higgins factored in what happened to Tiller last year and saw Milt Stiegel next up against the Calgary Stampeder defense.
Gave up 4. Ruffin's been coming on, though, and that's another reason. You know, Ruffin's been the dime guy or the nickel guy, depending on your terminology, and he's played well in that role, so why not move him up to the starter spot?
2nd and 2, and Charles Roberts stopped again in the backfield. Cornelius Anthony with the stop. And again, the theme yesterday, stop Roberts before he gets started, and the Stamps have done that tonight.
Yeah, just unblocked off the edge. Cornelius Anthony, the only thing he has to do is track down Roberts, and the play is designed to go right in the middle, not to the outside, to the left side of the formation, so Roberts can't run away from him.
7:15 to go, 21 points. You surprised that Westwood comes on, even though it is 3rd and 5?
Not really, because there's a lot of time left, except for Westwood has to get the ball out of bounds inside. He can't kick it into the end zone.
Westwood looking for the corner. Howell wants it to go in the end zone, and it will. This is going to be a single point. No yards flags, but Calgary will probably put a point on the board and get better field position with just under 7 minutes to play. Catch Rogers Jays on TSN this Tuesday and Wednesday as Toronto plays host to the American League East leading New York Yankees. Coverage begins both nights, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Available in TSN HD.
Well, if Troy Westwood was playing baseball, that would be an error for him on that punt.
E7. A point that the Bombers didn't want. They wanted field position. And now Burris just gets it away, and Cates drops the ball with Tom Canada dropping back. Picking up Wes Cates. Let's go down to the sidelines and rejoin Jermaine Franklin.
With all the attention going to the Stampeders receiving corps and their end zone celebrations this week, the one positive that came out of it was the lack of attention and focus paid on Henry Burris, who has been under tremendous pressure, not only from the media, but from the fans. Now, Henry Burris knew, speaking to him this week, that he took a lot of that loss on his shoulders. He knew he struggled, and he took it seriously, and he came back, and obviously you see tonight his response.
Season low 125 yards passing last week, Jermaine, against Edmonton. And the costly time count violation. The final series, Burris going deep here, looking for Rambo, and Malbrough was there in coverage.
Yeah, but that's what's confusing. I mentioned that early on too, that he has taken criticism. Here's a team that comes in 7-5. They lost the game to Edmonton in that rematch, which is always a tough game every single year, no matter how good the football team is. Prior to that, 4 straight wins where Henry Burris throws 255, 310, 295, 310. I mean,
Offensive Player of the Month of August.
I don't quite understand the criticism. This is professional football, and the other guys get paid too. And they will not win every game. And Burris actually talked to his entire team this week about that.
Just over 6 minutes away from winning their 5th in 6. Malvo having a tough time corralling the football, and did they get on it or not? I think Randy Chevrier, somebody on the Stamps, come up with it. It's Trey Young with the football as Kelly Malvo just could not find the handle.
Well, he has the decision to make, Kelly Malvo. He has to decide, can he cleanly pick this football up and get back to the return? I think he tries to do it early, and then it's just, okay, now I got to scramble. And then Albert Johnson runs by it. He was trying to help his teammate out. He couldn't get back. And
a little hot potato on a cold night. And Trey Young, the Stampeders safety, ends up with possession, and the ball just inside the Winnipeg 15-yard line.
That was fit, fumble, and fall down for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Henry Burris, 1 away from 100 career touchdown passes, and looks into the end zone. There it is. Number 100, Jermaine Franklin, or Jermaine Copeland.
Our sideline guy's good.
Yeah, he's not that good.
He's not that good, but Jermaine Copeland is, and he gets on that out, beats his man, and Burris feathers the pass up over top. I think it was Robert Bean that was in the throwing lane, but he drops it over top of him and into the hands of Jermaine Copeland.
Second straight 2-touchdown game for Copeland against these Blue Bombers.
And Kelly Malvo, who just fumbled the football on the kickoff, is the guy that was covering Copeland on that out. Not very well.
It's been a restrained Jermaine Copeland tonight. Haven't seen the A celebrations, but we have seen the A receiver. Jermaine Copeland has 5 touchdowns now in the season, a pair tonight as he works on Kelly Malvo.
Football is a game of one-on-one battles. that becomes the ultimate team game. If you win enough of the one-on-one battles, you win the war. And the perfect feather throw. Watch how he throws this just up over the outstretched hands of Robert Bean and right between the 8 and the 0 in Jermaine Copeland. And the dances aren't quite as extravagant tonight.
No, not at all. Franklin could have caught that one.
Yeah.
And you know, you're talking about Henry Burris and the criticism. He has the touchdown pass lead in the Canadian Football League now with 19 on the season. Albert Johnson. Met by Wes Lysak, and he'll be driven back. And we have 5 minutes and 8 seconds remaining and a quarterback change for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as Brad Banks takes over in relief of Kevin Glenn.
Well, Doug Barry obviously just decides he's got to get Banks some reps. Had he gambled at 7 minutes to go, it's easy to go back now, but you know, you mentioned that maybe gambling would be a good decision there. They punt it, it goes in the end zone, Burris goes down, and it's basically over.
Well, you're 3 touchdowns down. And
yeah,
you're right. I mean, if Westwood executes the punt inside the 5, your defense can set something up. But see what Brad Banks does. He's got Brazel up at the 44-yard line, and Banks with a strike on his first pass of the game.
Throwing and finding 84, Chris Brazel.
Third catch for Brazel, who has 7 straight games less than 40 yards, and he's a deep threat that's got to be more productive than that.
Yeah, and he had a chance at a touchdown early that may have, you know, made this a different football game that came through his hands. Of course, Kobe Reinhardt's been covering him, and he's maybe the best cover man for the Stamps.
Brazel 3 for 31. And, well, when you see that, you know it's not going to be your night. That doesn't happen very often, a drop by Milt Stegall.
Milt Stegall looks at his hands kind of like I look at my golf club half the time when I shank it in the trees. Had to be the glove. That was coming into tonight. And you could see, you know, how important Milt Stegall is. Having more yards than the rest of the group.
2nd and 10. And Banks, that one almost picked off on the ricochet as Chapman had a shot at it. His Banks can't hook up with Stegall on back-to-back attempts.
Chapman had a shot at, I think it was Ruffin that was covering Stegall, or was it Krantz Clemens, who's come in as the dime back. It was Clemens, and this is another guy that Tom Higgins has wanted to get into the lineup and just hasn't been able to, and finally did get Clemens in there from the Ottawa Renegades.
Milt thought Clemens had his hands all over him. What, good no call or not? Stegall wanted to see a flag. Westwood's kick fielded by Howell.
I say good no call.
Out at the 35 with 3:31 to play, and we'll get a quarterback change for the Stampeders too as Danny McManus takes off the warm-up jacket and gets ready to finish up here.
It's always tough for those backup quarterbacks at this stage in the game. I mean, they've been standing there all game long, and what makes it that much more tough is the fact that it's freezing cold. And now they got to get in there. Banks threw a couple of rockets in there. Now we'll see if Danny McManus can loosen up the old joints after being on the sideline all that long.
Stamps will move to 8-5 with this win, tying BC. Lions will have a couple of games in hand, including tomorrow night's. With Joffrey Reynolds breaking a tackle or 2 up to the 42. It'll be Montreal and BC tomorrow on the West Coast.
Danny McManus, when you talk about resumes, has a good one.
They have given the 3-minute warning to the benches here at McMahon with the Stampeders in charge.
quarter now. Stamps number 48, Brian Clark.
CFL on TSN is brought to you by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet, and by General Motors of Canada and all its divisions.
3 minutes remaining at McMahon Stadium. Calgary Stampeders have scored on 7 of their last 10 possessions, including 3 touchdowns. And now Danny McManus in to finish up. Looking at 2nd and 2, and finding Rambo for a completion. And Rambo and Malbrough have words at the Winnipeg bench.
Well, let's take a look at that resume from Danny McManus. Right there, number 2 behind Damon Allen, who's the all-time leader in football at 70,797 and counting. Danny McManus right behind him. Anthony Calvillo climbing that list. May be able to pass Ron Lancaster this year, but a pretty good night for Henry Burris. As, you know,
Objectionable conduct. Calgary 85. Major foul. Unnecessary roughness. Winnipeg number 3. Up 5 yards. First down.
I call them both. That's a good decision. But Henry Burris has put together a pretty good game. I mean, when you looked at the conditions here in Calgary tonight, you were thinking running game, you were thinking sloppy, the passing numbers would be down. But that's a pretty good night for Henry Burris. 269, 2 touchdowns, and a couple of key drives. When Winnipeg got that drive, that 5 first down drive and scored, Burris came right back.
Yeah, the answer back really ended the night. And Henry at 50% again. His percentage has not been great this year. It's a stat that doesn't bother him a bit.
Yeah, he doesn't care about that one. He wants to eliminate turnovers and move the football. There's another fight breaking out. But let's take a look at Henry Burris in the snow, in the conditions, in the wind. Nice throw to Jermaine Copeland there. He's had a couple of touchdowns to Copeland. He used his legs again in this game. Ran the football successfully. Nice balance in his offensive game calling. That's another throw to Copeland. So in real tough conditions for the quarterback, Burris has put together a game, and because of that, I think he's a candidate for Gladiator tonight. He's a candidate. I don't know.
Candidate?
It's
okay.
It was a tough effort in tough conditions, so he's at the top of the list. It's not done yet. It's not sealed.
I think there could be somebody else a little further ahead, but we will not take anything away from Henry Burris. And while we were looking at that pack, Malbrough and Rambo got into each other's grill again, and this time the bulk of the penalties are going against Calgary's 85. So the result is not in question, but this one's not done yet as far as personal scores are concerned.
Yeah, and they play each other again, these two teams. And that's why, even though you may be losing, Anthony Malbrough wants to make sure Rambo knows that, you know, he's not going to let up.
After the play was over, major foul, unnecessary roughness, Calgary 85. Major foul, face mask, Calgary 62. 30 yards of penalty, second down.
So it takes it all the way back to the Calgary 25, 2:34 on the clock. We mentioned that Ricky Williams may be back in the lineup next week when the Argos visit Calgary. Meantime, the Blue Bombers, if tempers are getting short here tonight, they've had quite a rivalry going with Montreal, and they go back to Montreal next week. tough end of the schedule, final third for the Blue Bombers. And that ball dropped, incomplete, intended for Case. But Doug Barry wasn't really fazed by the tough conclusion to the regular season for Winnipeg. 2 against Calgary, including tonight, 2 against Montreal, BC, and the 1 against Hamilton. And he said, we started with a tough first 6 and went 4-2.
But the questions coming into the season for Winnipeg, the biggest one of them was the play of Kevin Glenn. And he started out answering the bell and maybe answering that question to the fans and to the so-called experts across the league. And then he got hurt. And now the question is back for Kevin Glenn. Is he going to be the guy that pushes Winnipeg not only into the playoffs, but into a position to win a playoff game when they host the Grey Cup this year? And I think that question comes up again after tonight's game.
Albert Johnson. And he put the ball on the turf, and it is a live football. And does Calgary have it? Walter Spencer, I believe, has got the ball for Calgary. So the Stampeders get it back with 2:18 to go, and a long, cold, miserable night gets a little worse for Doug Barry's crew.
A short week, and then they come in, and then they have to travel. We'll see if Albert Johnson is down. No, that looks like his knee touched. Now, has he lost the football? Well, no, the ball is out. Looked like the ball was knocked loose, so that's a good call again. They've been right on, and that was a good call by the officials there. But again, the short week for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and then they come into Calgary where they haven't played well. You mentioned, what was it? They've won 2 of their last 15.
15, yeah.
Yeah, so they haven't played well here, and then they get the conditions as well, and then that all just adds up to a whole lot of adversity.
Wes Cates is the running back. And we got something else going here. John Comiskey without the helmet was in a bit of dust up. Is that Kyrie Bear? No, Gavin Walls. His temper's getting short here as the Stampeders center lost his helmet and is cool a bit, working against Gavin Walls.
Yeah, but you've got to you got to keep your composure, and you've got to win with class, and you got to lose with class. And you know, I can understand the frustration. If you've been across the stripe and you've been on the wrong end, I can understand the frustration from Winnipeg when you're on the wrong end of a score like this in a very important game to start the stretch drive here. But you know, you got to win and lose with class at this level. At any level, for that matter.
Well, it's time now for the Friday Night Gladiator, brought to you by Castrol. It's more than just oil, it's liquid engineering.
You know, it was a close one. You know, I was leaning towards the quarterback burst, but the guy he threw it off to, the guy he handed it off to, the guy who set the tone physically, and you know what was the one thing that he did tonight, Joffrey Reynolds, that really swayed the final vote, that really made the difference, was a couple of big straight arms on Barron Simpson. And just the power in that straight arm, that left arm from Joffrey Reynolds. He is our gladiator tonight, and Joffrey Reynolds, I salute you.
And if it hadn't been Reynolds, there might have been an inquiry from your support staff.
Well, there was that too. When I made the suggestion a few minutes ago, it was, I got looks of.
I know you're
nuts?
You're always reluctant when a guy puts up too many big numbers, because that's
not the
quite
star.
what it's
That's
all
right.
about.
Yeah, it's not the star of the game. We have another deal for that. It's called the player of the game. This is that guy that you may not notice, but he's playing hard, and everyone noticed Joffrey Reynolds tonight. But he did it with his toughness. He did it with his straight arm.
And after the penalties to Walls, Calgary with great field position. That look into Copeland falls incomplete, and just about every play it looks like something could happen now, as the guys in the trenches are really getting owly.
Well, and here's the other thing that the players at this situation, and that again I think was Ron Warner, and he can be an intense individual, but what they have to consider here too is, you know, this game is over, and the last thing you want to do is be suspended for a game or something you do when the game is over after the fact, and Warner's got to be careful.
2nd and 10. Cates. Tom Canada will bring him down at the 12-yard line after a 4-yard pickup.
And Tom Canada, number 44 on the stop.
Well, the Calgary Stampeders came into the season, the expectation was, let's decide the Grey Cup route for the parade. And then they came out of the gate, win one, lost one to Edmonton back-to-back. Lost a couple, went on a 3-game losing streak, and people started here in Calgary wondering what was wrong with their football team. Tom Higgins never lost faith and always had that confidence in his weapons.
3rd and 6, instead of kicking the field goal, they'll go to Cates. Cates to the 5, gets a first down. Well, you put a guy in as Joffrey Reynolds backup, and he wants to make an impression. He has made some plays tonight, and Cates makes a late first down here to keep Calgary possession alive.
You know, and what a great backup to have, because he's a change of pace from Joffrey Reynolds. Joffrey Reynolds is a great power back, and Cates a little more of a quick kind of slashing type running back, so that kind of changes the style up a little bit. And
beat out a couple of pretty good players for the job too. First Tony Stallings, then David Allen. And here's Cates now to the 3-yard line. Of course, that's his 9th carry.
Chris had that big play on Labor Day, I think it was, seal the deal.
Yeah, that swing pass, untouched, 74 yards against the Eskimos. He also had the big play on the that fake field goal in Montreal that was called back because of a ineligible number on the line. And now he's had 67 yards rushing himself. So a couple of Calgary guys have outrun Charles Roberts on the night.
Against the #1 run defense in the Canadian Football League coming into this game.
Now pitch to Cates again, left side, and Cates is in. Touchdown, Calgary.
So when you add it all up, this Calgary football team is positioned well, you know, to take this run. I mean, we've just gone over all their weapons, Wes Cates being one of them, and they're healthy. They're relatively healthy at this time of the year. They're hitting their stride. They have confidence. They're right on the heels of the BC Lions to get the bye.
DeAngelis adds the extra point, and speaking of the Lions, they'll play the Lions back-to-back in October, and they're putting a hurting on the Bombers tonight. We're in the final minute here in Calgary, and when this game is done, we'll join Dutch and Jennifer. Sports Center coming up next. All the highlights of the day. NHL training camps have opened.
How do my Canucks look?
Well, they've got Roberto Luongo.
Yeah, there we go.
And apparently they will have Ryan Kessler, although that was certainly news this week. But you don't like me talking too much about hockey, so we'll...
No, it's okay. It's snowing. I mean, if it's snowing, you can mention it.
Andre Thurman up across the 25-yard line. So 51 seconds left.
The other thing I was going to mention about Calgary is, you know, they got a good defense, a great front seven. Their secondary is now gaining some confidence. So Tom Higgins is looking at a group that, you know, is probably playing their best football this season. And then throw in one of the hottest, if not the hottest kicker in the Canadian Football League in Sandro DeAngelis. I mean, this is a football team that's right now positioned to take a real nice run.
And one of the, probably the best spike we saw tonight from Sandro.
Yeah. He was the last option to get the spike, but it was pretty good.
Brad Banks in relief of Kevin Glenn. Patrick in pursuit. Banks airing it out, looking for Brazel, and this one nearly picked off.
Yeah, that's worth one more look. Henry Burris goes over on the 1-yard touchdown pass, and all the talk all week about these celebrations and dances. Let's take another look at this.
Taylor Robertson. No.
The O-line want nothing to do with this. I mean,
no.
Yeah, excuse me, I'd like to get to the bench.
Tomasky, no.
No. Yeah,
somebody take this ball.
This is absolutely. I mean, that is classic. I mean, and therein lies the difference. When you're talking about the debate over who is going to be the type of players that get into those dances and those routines and those celebrations, it is certainly not going to be the offensive lineman.
You know, I asked Scott Coe about it yesterday. Does it bother some guys on the other side of the ball? And he said, well, the linebackers, when we score, we'll act like we've been there before. But he said, when those receivers are dancing, all I know is something good happened for our team.
Yeah, that's true. That was pretty funny, though. Oh, boy.
Chris Brazel was helped off after that last incompletion. That's all the Bombers need now, a lead injury in a game that's gotten away. R.J. Franklin has a catch underneath, and he's pulled down by Walter Spencer, who gets a turn along with Mark Caliste at linebacker. I want to ask you about the Bombers before we're done.
Okay.
This is 5 losses in 6. Do you throw this one away on a short week against a quality team, or is there cause for a lot of concern in Winnipeg?
Cause for some concern, I think. And you know, right now, Brendan Taman, the general manager for the Bombers, has worked on the offensive line. That's where they got hit hard with injuries. Dan Goodspeed is out. Matt Sheraton is out. I mean, they got hit with injuries. They're getting a couple guys back there.
3rd down and 5. And that ball incomplete. It hit Trey Young.
But the other thing is, and we've gone through, Chris, the great talented players in Calgary and the options they have. I'm not sure Doug Barry has those same options. I mean, you look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Yes, they're Charles Roberts strong. Yes, they're Milt Stiegel strong. They need probably one more big-time receiver. How they find that at this point, I'm not sure. But do they have enough in the receiving corps has got to be a concern. And can they fix this offensive line and get them going in time to take their run?
And one of the dilemmas, and the Bombers aren't the only team in this situation, but Doug Barry has to deploy 2 imports on the offensive line. The Calgary Stampeders, the only team that's used an all-Canadian offensive line the entire year.
Yeah.
And so he's got more import weapons at the skill positions.
Well, and I love what he said about that, Tom Higgins, yesterday when he talked about his offensive line, that they made that decision early in the season, and they basically decided to burn the boat and send it adrift, he said. In other words, we're going to commit. We are going to be on this thing, and this is what we're going to do. Canadian O-line across the board, and it does pay off in a lot of ways if you can do it.
Eskimo is the only other team normally, but they've had to use Raleigh Roundtree. That's the final play of the game, and the Stampeders continue their domination of the Blue Bombers here at McMahon Stadium as they romp to a 43-9 victory and move to 8-5 on the season. Bombers fall to 6-7.